we're obviously going to do an analysis on the Oscars as well. But I watched most of it before we started the podcast, and I'll say, I think people are just kind of cowards in Hollywood. Okay. We'll talk about like we'll get to the Oscar stuff in a second. Like we're obviously going to do situation monitoring first. Your Vanity Fair party video made it to Bilibili, and one of the top comments was his head is really so small he can cover it with one hand. Yeah, Voice of Hinrajab didn't win, unfortunately, which was a big bummer. No, I did not see James Cameron. Stop asking me all the famous people that I may or may not have seen. I didn't see any famous people, okay? All right, we're going to do situation monitoring. I'll be back in a second. I got to use the restroom.
If there's no response, or if it's a negative response, I think it will be very bad for the future of NATO, he said. Trump is trying to pressure world powers, including the UK, France and Italy, to help keep the Strait of Hormuz open as oil prices skyrocket. This after Australia and Japan already refused his request. The president won't give specifics on which countries might sign on. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil travels, is now a no-go zone for shipping, with the constant threat of Iranian drone and missile attacks. Democrats argue the administration had no plan.
The Strait of Hormuz obviously is now shut down. All of this was predictable.
The White House stands by its strategy. Energy Secretary Chris White telling our Martha Raddatz the pain at the pump will be short-lived.
Are you really sure it's going to be short-term? Can you guarantee it'll just be weeks before prices go down?
Hey, there's no guarantees in wars at all. I can guarantee this situation would be dramatically worse without this military operation to defang the Iranian regime.
This as thousands of U.S. Marines aboard Navy carriers move into the region. It's an amphibious attack group capable of conducting ground operations. President Trump has said he's not ruling out U.S. boots on the ground. And this morning, the real cost of the war becoming clear as we learn the identities of the 6 Americans killed when their refueling aircraft went down in Iraq on Thursday. Among them, 34-year-old Technical Sergeant Ashley B. Pruitt from Bardstown, Kentucky. Her family described her as an amazing wife, mother, and airman. And the youngest among them, Technical Sergeant Tyler Simmons, just 28 years old. His family say he dreamed of serving his country.
He's just a fantastic person. You couldn't ask for a better grandson than he was.
Well, oil is now at $101 a barrel, and that is hitting gas prices in the U.S. Gas Buddy thinks gas will hit $4 a gallon this week. That, of course, could rise further as this war continues. Rebecca?
And you see the ripple through of all of it. Okay, James, thank you.
Trump's not asking, he's demanding. The White House is planning to announce a coalition of countries to reopen the Strait of Hormuz this week, reported Axios and the Wall Street Journal on Sunday. Trump said he has turned to about 7 countries to send warships to the passage. He declined to name them, but previously said he'd hoped China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the UK would join. Trump claimed policing the strait would be more for the benefit of other countries than the US. Asia, which receives roughly 70% of all crude oil shipped through the strait, has suffered the most from its closure. Still, Japan and Australia have already stated they won't be sending warships or ordering maritime security to the passage. On Monday, Tokyo began releasing its oil reserves worth about 45 days to manage supply shortages.
We plan to consider taking necessary steps while communicating well with relevant countries, including the U.S., and monitoring the situation closely. But no decisions have been made to send self-defense forces.
It seems Trump won't take further rejections lying down. In an interview with the Financial Times, he said it would be very bad for the future of NATO if it refuses to help. Trump also pressured China to participate, claiming the country gets 90% of its oil from the strait. The U.S. leader is scheduled to travel to Beijing at the end of the month for a summit with Xi Jinping. If China says no, Trump threatened he could delay the meeting to an unspecified date.
More than 100 Iranian naval vessels have been sunk or destroyed over the last week and a half. That has to be some kind of a record. Additional strikes continue to launch from all directions every single hour. And as you know, we attacked Carg Island and knocked it literally, destroyed everything on the island except for the area where the oil is. I call it the pipes. We left the pipes. We didn't want to do that, but we will do that. We can do that on 5 minutes notice. It'll be over. But for purposes of someday rebuilding that country. I guess we did the right thing, but it may not stay that way. Just one simple word and the pipes will be gone too, but it'll take a long time to rebuild that. We are aggressively dismantling Iran's defense industrial base, and ability to rebuild its missiles and drone capability is getting down to close to zero. And we're hammering their capacity to threaten commercial.
Hassan Shok's dog, report him. Hassan Shok's dogs. Hassan is an abuser. Everybody here be warned. Hassan Shok's dogs. Hassan used shockers. Hassan is shocking his dog. Fuck Hassan. Fuck Hassan, that abuser. Bro, you good? Everybody spam fuck Hassan. This has got to be a bot, right? You good, bro? You good? LLLLL. Be honest, Hassan, is this true? Yeah, see? Look. Place. I shocked her so hard. She's dead now. Everybody type fuck Hassan. This guy's awesome. All right, where were we? Guys, things are going really well. Okay, things are going really well in the war effort. I just want to say, please don't write it in the news that things are not going really well in the war effort, because if you do that, I'm going to make it illegal. I'm going to put you in jail if you do that. Okay, Brandon Carr, head of the FCC, please make it illegal for people to say the war effort is not going well. Please, Brandon, do something about it. I need you to put it in the newspaper that the war is doing great. Also, we're winning. We're winning so good, and we don't even need anyone's help, except if you don't give us help, we will remember it. That's right, the UK. I said we don't want your help, but actually that was a lie. I really do. I really do want your help. That was a lie. I desperately need your help. Please give me help. We need all of the help we can get. Yes, we will be covering Cuba in a little bit. I know Cuba's power grid collapsed fully. Cuba has officially completely run out of oil. And we will be covering it, obviously, and I'll be giving you more updates on that as well after I'm done with this part of the broadcast.
In the Strait of Hormuz, with more than 30 mine-laying ships destroyed, we hit, to the best of our knowledge, all of their mine-laying ships. Now they can put them on other types of ships, I guess, and drop them in. But we don't know that any have even been dropped in. We're not sure that any have been. That's a big negative for them if they do it. It's a form of suicide. But we don't know that they have dropped any in. But we've hit all 30 of their ships and destroyed them. They're all at the bottom of the sea. We strongly encourage other nations whose economies depend on the Strait far more than ours. You know, we get less than 1% of our oil from the Strait, and some countries get much more. Japan gets 95%, China gets 90%. Many of the Europeans get quite a bit. South Korea gets 35%. So we want them to come and help us with the Strait. We have it in very good shape. The countries, I said, we've already taken care of Iran, but now, because of the fact that literally a single terrorist can put something in the water or shoot something or shoot a missile, a small missile, and it's fairly...
Kind of should have thought about that beforehand, don't you think? That was, that's the reason why the Strait is not open. It's not open. It was open, but it could be open, but, it's kind of... It's kind of hit or miss, and by that I mean you hope that the drones miss your ships, right? That's what you hope. You hope for it, but then sometimes the drones don't miss, and they hit the ship, and then the ship's on fire. And I guess what I'm trying to say is the Strait of Hormuz is not open, even though I said it is, and it should be open, and it could be open, but I chose to wage war against this country alongside Israel. Unbelievably coping. China, please help me, China. What is this, Pastor Jihad? That's funny. Stupid. Okay. Where the fuck was it? Oh, here it is.
Close range because it is a tight area, and which is one of the reasons they've always used that as a weapon. Iran has always used that as an economic weapon. and it's not going to be able to be used very long. Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years. We've protected them from horrible outside sources, and they weren't that enthusiastic. And the level of enthusiasm matters to me. We have some countries where we have 45,000 soldiers, great soldiers, protecting them from harm's way. And we have done a great job. And when we want to know, do you have any minesweepers? Well, would rather not get involved, sir. I said, for 40 years we're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor, very few shots going to be taken because they don't have many shots left. But they said, we'd rather not get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that that was said, because I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them. And if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just known that for a long period of time, just like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon. What we're going to do is we could take a few questions from the press.
Oh, I also met the journalist, the New York Times journalist that asked Trump that question about how he was the only one in the administration that's like, how he was the only one in the admin that was actually saying like that America had not struck the school. Yeah, he said he appreciated that I hyped his ass up. Why would China help us? There's no reason. Mearsheimer is not sugarcoating it. We're not winning against Iran. Yeah, I don't know why people are. I know why people are coping, right? I know why people are coping, because if you've had a lifetime of like American dominance, okay, and even when Afghanistan was a failure, Iraq was a failure, Vietnam was a failure, all these things were failures, but they were technically successes for the capital owning class, because those wars were not meant to be, those wars were not there to like win, right? Those weren't like military successes. Those wars were there for, what is happening today? What the fuck? Is the Israeli bots back or something? I thought they hit the data center. What's going on today? Is it because of the Vanity Fair party and there's like, some positive PR around, so they have to like spam it or something? Is it the Hasbara budget? Where is this coming from? I was genuinely. BB harassing you from beyond the grave? Yeah. Michael Fusco Art, thank you for the 50 big ones. Hasbara is in overdrive all over social media at the moment. They migrated their service to AWS. So anyway, we were they're talking about that one Asmold pick. Huh? What do you mean? Oh yeah, it's Asmongold with the Israeli shock collar. So all of those other wars, right? Like Afghanistan, Iraq, like there are military objectives, but like ultimately it's supposed to be a way to like bloat defense contracts, right? Like for the military industrial complex, things like that. This, on the other hand, is not a way where you can like force project, a way where you can show how dominant you are as a military force. Like this is not, this doesn't have any like discernible W in the near future or in the far future, okay? There is nothing here that you can hold on to, because it has been devastating for the energy markets. So no one is actually, no one on the American economy side is actually going to see any positive reverberations from this. It's actually been devastating for American force projection capabilities, because like when we did shock and awe from the standpoint of like someone working at the State Department or someone working in the American government, you have this idea that like we can go anywhere around the world in 24 hours and we can destroy them. Like we can destroy our enemies no matter how strong they might be, right? And the issue here is we completely lost that. We completely lost that. We showed everyone that we can't even protect our allies, that an American security cooperation doesn't actually offer you security at all. It is a total paper tiger moment for America, right? Our foreign adversaries are doing fantastic. Russia is doing amazing in this process, because now we have to release some of those sanctions. We have to do sanctions easement on Russia so that these other countries don't completely collapse. Russia is a major energy provider, and now they have massive leverage in this process. Again, another opportunity for leverage for China as well, both because everything that takes away from the American power, American imperialism capability, you know, everyone saw your ass out on stream. Saw our ass out on stream. Everyone saw our ass out on stream. Yeah. This is the one where I think we can be pretty confident in saying there was no real plan here. There was an idea of what they wanted, but they didn't really plan a scenario besides Venezuela 2.0. Yeah, it's just like, it's crazy because like the Venezuela one was fairly in and out, right? The Venezuela one is like, it was a quick extraction campaign. It was illegal. It was totally ridiculous. But like Trump understood and got assurances, very clearly got assurances ahead of time from Trump very clearly got assurances ahead of time from the Venezuelan government that the Delcy Rodriguez administration was going to play ball with them. It's very clear, like the leadership, there was a contingency plan. There was an idea of like what the next day would look like once, Maduro was kidnapped. And while that's completely illegal, completely unjustifiable, it was a relatively swift process, as I said at the time as well. I was like, this is completely unacceptable. We're broaching new territory here. Having said that, however, this is very much the exact kind of Trump plan that he likes to do. Qasem Soleimani as well, like the assassination of Qasem Soleimani was a new era of American assassinations of like high-ranking leadership of foreign adversaries. It was a big gamble, but Iran demonstrated tremendous restraint as a consequence, or in the aftermath of that. So that didn't actually end up exploding in Trump's face, even though it was a fucking idiotic gamble, because what's happening right now in Iran could have happened back then, right? So we have found out, at least by now, what kind of military campaign Trump likes to do and what kind of military campaign Trump doesn't like to do. He will behave like a madman and do things that previous administrations have shied away from. This is clear, right? He very clearly will go in and kill a leader of a foreign country, of a foreign adversary, for example. He'll go in and kidnap the foreign leader of a country, but he does not like having long-standing military occupations up until now. This is a new moment in his administration because right now he's kind of being forced into a situation where he has to commit additional troops to an extended bombing campaign, to an extended boots on the ground military occupation in a massive country like Iran. I don't think he wants to be there. I don't think he wants to be there at all. I think in his mind, this was a 4-day campaign maximum. Come in, scare the rest of the administration after you decapitate the leadership and high-ranking generals, find someone who will comply, possibly an IRGC guy, and then work with that guy to set up Western interests inside of the country. Except that's not what happened, because this is coming off the heels of 47 years of instability, 47 years of direct destabilizing efforts in Iran, and trying to kill Iranian citizens, successfully killing Iranian citizens through sanctions, through the Iran-Iraq war, and numerous other endeavors. And also having fake negotiations set up. And the major reason as to why this is different is because this wasn't conducted by the American side. This was conducted by the Israeli side. The Israeli side gave Trump all of the idiotic things, all of the idiotic information that is totally, totally not true, and told them how easy this would be when it was very clear it wasn't going to be an easy campaign at all. And anyone and everyone could have told you a mile away that this was going to be a long-standing, incredibly consequential, devastating predicament, millions of lives lost if it continues, right? An energy crisis around the world that no one wanted, but everyone predicted. Donald Trump hates being in a situation like that. He hates being in a situation like that. But now he's stuck. And it's pretty crazy because you see it. You see this is a joke, but it's not really. Trump 228, wars about nukes. 3-1, declared victory. 3-3, wars about U.S. elections. 3-4, wars about human rights. 3-7, we're winning the war. 3-11, declared victory 5 times over. 3-14, war is won, allies need to help. 3-13 to 3-15, war is won and liberating LGBTQ. 3-16, Ayatollah Khamenei is gay. It's remarkable because you rarely ever see such poor messaging discipline from the American administration. You rarely ever see an American administration, regardless of how bad the war efforts are going, kind of fall apart with no pushback whatsoever. Like, these guys are folding with zero pushback. I mean, I guess militarily there's maximum pushback from Iran, and it's very obvious, and I joked about this before, but like Trump's attitude here is, oh shit, Iran got hands. Also, don't they know it's illegal, right? Don't they know it's illegal to fight back? And for the record, I've been joking about this for the last 3 weeks now, as we are in the 3rd week of Operation Epstein's Fury. But Trump basically did say that.
So it's a little unfair. You know, you win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing. But we're hitting them very hard. And today is a big day where we're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the Strait. And I think we'll get it going very soon. So it's
isn't that crazy? Is kind of unbelievable that Trump is just out here saying the quiet part out loud again. Right? He's just straight up saying it should be illegal to fight back the way that Iran is fighting back. How dare they? You're not supposed to go after me. You're not supposed to go after my friends. You're not supposed to go after my radar installations in the fucking region, right? You're not supposed to close the Strait of Hormuz. Why are you doing that? Don't you know you're supposed to just like sit there and eat it? And I guess like if you are only used to just dominating countries that have already been previously dominated, previously destabilized, this is a moment where, this is a moment where you're like a little shocked. You're like a little confused. You're like, wait a minute. Why the hell are they successfully mounting an opposition? Why the hell are they successfully fucking fighting back?
And then after that, we'll have our meeting, and we have a little lunch for the board. So we'll have a little bit of a lunch, and it's an honor to have you all here. So many of you, Jimmy, so many of you are friends. It's a great honor to have you here, and we're going to do a great job with the Trump Kennedy Center. Okay, yes, please, CNN.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not CNN, I'm Daily Wire, but thank you for the question. Numerous countries have told me they are on their way. Can you give us a hint what they are, what that entails, how soon they might be there?
You mean who are the countries?
Yes, sir.
I'd rather not say yet, but we'll be announcing Marco Rubio and the various people that are doing that will be announcing. And I have to tell you, we have some that are really enthusiastic. They're coming already. They've already started to get there. It takes a little while to get there. It's like, in some cases, you have to travel an ocean. So it doesn't go that fast, but it'll go fast. And we have some that are fairly local that are doing it. But we'll give you a list. Some are very enthusiastic, and some are less than enthusiastic. And I assume some will not do it. I think we have one or two that will not do it that we've been protecting for about 40 years at, tens of billions of dollars, Mr. Speaker. So I'll be reporting that to you in the House and the Senate. and I'll say, why are we protecting countries that don't protect us? And I've always felt that was a weakness of NATO. We were going to protect them, but I always said, when in need, they won't protect us. Now, this isn't need. Need would be one of the big boys. But I will say that we built the greatest military in the world, and we protect people. And if we need their mine boats, or if we need anything, any piece of apparatus that they may have because of a situation that they have, they should be jumping to help us, because we've helped them for years stay out of wars. Yeah, please.
Thank you.
That's not true, by the way. There's never been a moment where America has caused the rest of the world to not get into wars. It is the exact opposite. And it's funny because Donald Trump would admit that, like, last time he was running for president, right? That's the type of thing that you would hear from Trump. He'd be like, we're always trying to, get into other people's business and then forcing the rest of the world to come with us. It's unacceptable. Why are we over there destabilizing the world? Like, that's what he used to say in 2016. That's what he used to say in 2024. It's so crazy. Now that it's like, now that Big Daddy, Big Yahoo was like, you got to get in here. You got to get in here and fuck this shit up. Okay. He's like, that's right, everyone. Why aren't they doing it with us? Why aren't they so excited, so giddy at the prospect of allowing their sailors to die? Why are they not allowing their sailors to die so that Big Yahoo can continue his war? That's right. I love him. I love Satan Yahoo. He is my favorite.
Very much, Mr. President. Can you tell us if you have spoken with French President Macron about the coalition to reopen?
Yeah, most of the countries he's complaining about have followed the U.S. into all of our wars, which, again, were all completely ridiculous, should have never happened, and weirdly enough, obviously still benefited Israel's ambitions in the region and also our other regional allies as well. This is a unique one, though, because this is the one where it only benefits Israel and pretty much nobody else. And let's be real, it might not even be beneficial for Israel if America cannot keep up its steady defense of the most moral nation on the planet, the only nation that matters. Am Israel Chai, Am Israel Chai. I love the nation state of Israel, right? So this might not even be good for fucking Israel if it keeps going the way it's going. Oh.
Strait of Hormuz. Have you been speaking with the French president?
What does that mean?
Have you been speaking with the French President Macron about the coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I have spoken to him. He's been, on a scale of 0 to 10, I'd say he's been an 8. Not perfect, but it's France. We don't expect perfect.
Are you confident that France will help with the reopening of Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think he's going to help. I mean, I'll let you know. I spoke to him yesterday. I don't do a hard sell on them because my attitude is we don't need anybody. We're the strongest nation in the world. We have the strongest.
Is that really what's going on, big dog? I mean, bro said, yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, we don't need anybody except if all the vassals don't fucking come out and defend us with their military because we really fucked up. I'm going to be super mad. I don't see any way out of this other than de-escalation. I find it objectively strange that de-escalation is not a part of the conversation. I find it very odd that Trump is not trying to cut Israel out of the equation, even at this stage, and to say, you know what, we're going to find a manageable conclusion here, a solution that makes a little bit more sense for everybody involved. Let's not light up the entire energy markets on fire as we have done so over the past 16 days. Let's let's de-escalate. Let's allow Iran to maintain sovereignty. We will, we will get a tactical W here because we can just say we destroyed their military capabilities, right? Just cope. But sometimes you need to eat that fucking cope, because if you don't, where is this supposed to go?
Military by far in the world. We don't need them. But It's interesting. I'm almost doing it in some cases, not because we need them, but because I want to find out how they react. Because I've been saying for years that if we ever did need them, they won't be there. Not all of them, but they won't be there. I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, NATO and all of these things to protect you. I mean, we're protecting them. We're working with them on Ukraine. Ukraine's thousands of miles away, separated by a vast ocean. We don't have to do that, but we did it. Well, Biden did it. I mean, I have to be honest with you. Biden got taken to the cleaners. But we worked with them in Ukraine. We don't need to work with them in Ukraine. And then they tell us that we have a mine chip around, and they don't want to do it. I think it's terrible. No, I was very surprised. I told him, we requested 2 aircraft carriers, which they had, and he didn't really want to do it. And then right after the war essentially ended, meaning they were obliterated, he said, I would like to send the aircraft carriers. I said, I don't need them after the war has ended and won. I need it before the war. So I was very upset with, not upset, I was not happy with the UK. I think they'll be involved, yeah, maybe. But they should be involved enthusiastically. We've been protecting these countries for years with NATO, because NATO is us. You can ask Putin. Putin fears us. He has no fear of Europe whatsoever. He fears the United States of America and the military that was built by me in the first term. Yeah.
President, you mentioned the significant amount of oil that China derives from the Middle East. What is the status of your conversation with President Xi in terms of getting China to cooperate, in terms of making this?
Yeah, why would that happen? Can you explain, Mr. President, please explain to me why the country that we have agitated against, the country that we claim is our #1 foreign adversary, why would that country come out and help us, Mr. President, when the Strait of Hormuz is closed for everyone except for China? And also now numerous other countries that are cutting side deals with the nation of Iran. Why would anybody do that? Like, look at his fucking face. Look at his face. He doesn't even need to answer the question. Look at his face. Look at the fucking face. Why? Why should China ever in a million fucking years turn around and be like, oh yeah, let me fix your fuck up while you're still bombing Iran? Why would that happen? Not only is it not beneficial for China's interests, okay, the very fact that we have endlessly postured against this other foreign nation over and over again while demanding a fucking bailout once more like it's 2008, because that's what happened, by the way. In 2008, China bailed us out. They played a major role in stabilizing our economy because at the time, it was a necessity for the entire globe, okay, for the international markets. So China played a role in bailing us out in 2008, an often forgotten aspect of our endless posturing against China. There are so many fucking idiots that still come in here and they're like, China this, China that, China's the scariest country on the fucking planet. It's like, bro, we would have cratered. Due to our unlimited greed, we would have cratered the fucking global marketplace if it wasn't for China bailing us out in 2008, because, they recognized that they needed us to be the consumption engine so they could continue fucking developing, so they could continue selling goddamn Labubus and trade maxing. Now, once again, the demand is there. We fucked it up. Now you have to come in and save us. And it doesn't make any fucking sense. It does not make any sense whatsoever. And yet, as always, for the record, the ones that are getting screwed over the hardest, aside from the Gulf states, who thought that they could just have American bases, American military bases, and American assets on their soil, and then, America just launches a war against their massive sovereign neighboring country, Iran, and they would just get away scot-free for some reason. I don't know why they thought that, right? They thought, oh, well, Iran is restrained. They always do restraint. They'll be fine. Well, you killed the one guy who was clearly holding it back. Okay? Yeah. The restrained parties got killed. And for the record, if I can see it, because I called it out ahead of time, I said it over and over again to deaf ears, not in this community, but in general, I kept repeating, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is a very restrained party. I know it sounds crazy to say. Like, think about when you first heard me say that. And this wasn't even like, a couple months ago. I've been saying that for the past 2 years, right? Whenever Israel would blow up, like an Iranian embassy or something in Damascus, and then there was very little pushback from Iran, I kept repeatedly telling you over and over again, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, I know it sounds crazy to hear, but Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is one of the most restrained parties in this entire conflict. Okay? And now he's dead. We assassinated him in his home at the age of 87 in the opening salvo, following along Israel's endless ambitions of destabilizing this region. We killed him. We killed his family. We killed a bunch of other IRGC generals in the process as well. And they were backed into a corner and forced to fight out of it. And now, here we are in this grand fuck up, entering the third week of Operation Epic Fortnight, Operation Epstein's Fury, whatever you want to fucking call it. And the question is, how can you get President Xi to fix your fuck up? And this is our stupid baboon president's face. I mean, the last time the U.S. attacked Iran, all Iran did was launch a few bombs at a base in Qatar while warning way ahead of time, hitting an empty area and clearing it with the U.S. beforehand. Khamenei's MO was strategic off-ramps. Exactly. Strategic restraint was the name of the game. And I said it over and over again. It sounds crazy. Think about how insane you thought I was when you first heard me say this 2 years ago. Now think where you're at now. Because for many Americans, they've never even thought about a foreign adversary, especially one that wears a turban. Oh, he's a religious figure. These guys are crazy. We know that they're barbaric. They're barbarians, right? Like, for the average American, it's not even within their capacity to understand that, like, other countries that we have designed as, like, permanent enemies might not actually present a significant threat to us until we force them to become a significant threat, okay? The reason why I'm bringing this up over and over again is because the same principle stands with Hassan Nasrallah as well, leader of the General Secretary of Hezbollah that was assassinated by Israel. And you should always factor that into your analysis. Like, what you have been taught for years and years might not necessarily be the case. So when you hear something that doesn't sit right with you because it doesn't correspond to your, to your social development, to how you've learned about these countries in the periphery, these enemy states, just remember that. You can overcome that hurdle so you can make better analysis, so you can conduct better analysis in general. I was about to say the same thing. Hezbollah had the same type of threat making, but little military action that Iran did. Exactly. Don't unpause the video. It lives on. Welp. That's funny. I like that we immediately turned it into an emote.
Strait of Hormuz safe for those oil tankers?
Yeah. So China's a great example. They get 91% of their oil from the Hormuz Straits, which we protected for years. And it always bothered me that we have these countries. Japan gets 95% of its from the Straits, the Hormuz Straits. And it always bothered me that we're protecting and we don't need them. We didn't need them before we started dig we must. Dig me must. That's the Trump policy of lots of oil. And we didn't use them very much. It used to be at 10%. Now it's at almost zero. We don't need, we don't need oil. We have all the oil we need for ourselves. It's one of the great assets that we have. We have more than double what anybody else in terms of oil production. We're at more than double any other country. So we don't need it, but we did it. It's almost You could
awesome. No, keep explaining to everyone that we actually don't even suffer from this. We're just fucking up the rest of the world's energy because we're totally isolated. This is great. This is great. Hey, by the way, how are the fucking oil prices doing in America right now? Because the other part of this is you have to go to the oil and gas industry and demand that they overproduce, at least for the American markets, and not actually sell their oil and gas to other partners, which would collapse, which would totally crater their energy markets again, right? Or overproduce by such an unimaginable degree that we don't have the capabilities to do so at this moment. For the record, it's like literally impossible to make up for the market loss, right? That you can stabilize the entire globe's energy on your own. You can't do that. You can't fucking do that. You can't out-drill, partially because you can't out-ship. You can't just magically reroute the entire world's energy outside of the United States of America. You're like, okay, we're just going into we're supercharging our oil production. Okay, what are you going to do when you don't have fucking ships? You don't have the tankers. You don't have the facilities. There's just no way. Like, it's just not possible, especially in the short term. That's not how the complex web that we have designed in the international energy commodities market. It's not, you can't just like magically flip a switch and decide America is now going to make up for the fucking the lack of supply. It just doesn't work that way. You need fucking oil tankers. You need a massive runway. You need to start the refineries ahead of time. Sometimes it takes a while to get up to the capacity necessary. It's all because of capitalism. A competent country would place price controls and export controls for oil. No, because even if America was like China and had complete control over its energy extraction and decided to literally refuse to sell so they could stabilize here, then what is Europe going to do? What is Asia going to do? Do you not understand? Not only do we not have the price control capabilities internally, especially for the oil and gas industry, that's not the goal here. That's never been the goal. That's not how America works, right? Haven't seen Kaya for a while. Did animal control finally save her? I swear to God, I think it's got to be the Vanity Fair thing, right? She's right here, chatter. I just don't use that camera angle anymore because this one's hotter. This one's more personal. You think that's what it is? The Kayatollah is sleepy. But yeah, even if countries around the world that have more capabilities of like releasing their strategic reserves and trying to do like export controls and stuff like that, there are plenty of countries that need oil, that need to get imported oil. So in that predicament, in that situation, right, what are those countries supposed to do? Do they just collapse? I mean, look at what we're doing in Cuba right now. Cuba doesn't have oil refineries. Cuba needs oil to be imported into the country. Cuba exports sugar. Cuba gets oil in exchange for that, right? Like that was the bargain initially. That was the design initially. Because what we did to Cuba in 3 months was cut off their oil supply from every other country that used to send them oil. Canada being one of the countries, Mexico being another one, and Venezuela, right? These were like the three primary oil shipping countries to Cuba. We obviously overtook Venezuela, and we started intercepting tankers that were sending oil to Cuba. And on top of that, we told Mexico and Canada that they were no longer allowed to send oil to Cuba. We completely shut their energy grid off. Today, you're hearing about the Cuban energy grid collapsing as a direct consequence of their 3 months of not having any fucking oil sent to the country. That is what every other country would look like that needs oil imports. You understand? So even if America was capable of releasing their strategic reserves and also capable of price controls, which not going to happen, but let's say we did do that, right? or capable of demanding that our oil producers produce much more refined, much more oil in order to stabilize the market. We don't have the capacity to stabilize the market. Even if we were to internally stabilize our prices, the rest of the world would have their energy grids collapse. This is like everything is interconnected. The energy markets are all interconnected. So it's not even just capitalism that's a play here. It's the devastating impact of when imperialism actually does fail, because it just totally destabilizes everything. It's unbelievable.
Say we did it out of habit, which is not a good thing to do. But we did it because we have some good allies there. We have.
It's also extra unbelievable because the guy doing it is such a fucking baboon.
Middle Eastern countries there, Israel there. So we did it for a lot of reasons. But it always amazed me that we did it. We never asked for reimbursement. And it was really there to serve other countries, not us. And by the way, we have the Sugar King. The same story. Look at that. Alfie von Hool. Alfie, thank you both very much. Huh? That's Pepe here. Pepe. Hi, Pepe. How are you? How are you? Is Alfie in the backstage? Huh? Is he sitting back there waiting for you? No? You doing all right? Pepe is a great friend of all of ours, I think, in the room. Tremendous. And we appreciate you being here. Great to have you. Thank you.
Mr. President, honored.
That's great. Both of you. Thank you very much. So go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, you've said that Iran does want to make a deal. Now, into the third week of this bombing campaign, what would that deal look like? What are the ask that you're making of the government?
They want to make a deal. They're talking to our people. I don't know if they say that to you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Don't forget, they are a country that for years, I didn't know this until recently, they're a country based on disinformation. And now they're using disinformation plus AI. And that's a terrible situation. That's a terrible situation. They showed all sorts of things happening in the last 2 weeks that never happened. Between their kamikaze boats that don't exist, between blowing up the aircraft carrier, one of the great ships in the world, the Abraham Lincoln, on fire. They showed it on fire. I called the general. I said, General, what's with the Abraham Lincoln? It looks like it's burning down. No, it's not burning down. Not a bullet was ever fired at it, sir. They know better. I said, this is my first glimpse of...
They literally keep begging. By the way, there is a lot of fucking AI bullshit, and obviously, like, you know, I don't... unlike the president, I don't fall for the AI slop, and I try to urge you not to fall for the AI slop either. But the Iranian government has actively been begging for American naval assets to try and go through the Strait of Hormuz. They have agitated for it over and over again. They have demanded it over and over again. This is what they want. They want to goad America into sending a fucking ship through the kill zone so they can pummel it and take a massive fucking W. Okay? They want the money shot. They want an American naval asset to try to cross the Strait of Hormuz, which is literally crossable only by a 2-mile area that is what is effectively known as a choke point or a kill zone. Okay? Any naval asset that tries to cross through that is going to get fucking pummeled. Okay? They're also demanding boots on the ground. The Iranian military command mocks Trump, says the operation should be called Epic Fear, not Epic Fury. Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya central headquarters, the wartime command and coordinates operation across Iran armed forces, shares a message in English directed at Trump. This motherfucker swapped it. He said it's English time.
A message to the President of the United States. The outcome of war...
President of the United States.
...cannot be determined by tweets. The result of a war is determined in the field, the very place where you and your forces do not dare to approach, and you can only talk about it in your tweets. It's better to name this war as Epic Fear instead of epic fury.
That's crazy. Bro, is this going well? Is this going well, guys? Guys, is it going well? I don't think it's going well. And for the record, the conditions might change, right? America is so crazy. They could deploy a fucking nuke. America's so insane that and has such unlimited offensive capabilities that they could technically, like, genuinely destroy enough launchers that they can't, like, build them fast enough, even though it's, like, fairly easy to put together with scrap metal. Like, let's say that happens. It doesn't matter, because even if America somehow was able to turn this around and, like, secure a W at the end, right, which I don't think is likely, the L's that we have taken thus far, are going to have reverberations for decades from here on out. The very fact that the last 16 days have shown the rest of the world that America is completely fucking incapable of defending American military bases and American assets has set back America's force projection capabilities in a way. Hassan, your deconstruction of this is incredibly inaccurate. Lamau, oh, sure, buddy. Sure. You're so right. You can keep leaning in to wherever you're getting maximalist cope from, okay? I have no dog in this fight beyond the fact that I want American imperialism to end, okay? I want Western imperialism to end. I want countries to have dignity. I want countries to have sovereignty, right? But if you think between the United States, Israel, and Iran, who has a upper hand so far, all you need to look at is whether or not the Strait of Hormuz is open. And it's objectively not open. It's still closed. The energy markets are still collapsing. So clearly, this is not the epic victory that America thought it was going to be. When the U.S. Secretary of War declares no quarter, he doesn't project strength. He conveys moral bankruptcy and ignorance about law of armed conflict. We advise him to review the Hague Convention and Rome Statute of the ICC unless he aspires to join Netanyahu as a war criminal. Yeah, that's not going to happen, man. This is what I mean. These guys are, like, too predisposed with, like, international rules of engagement, humanitarian rights. Like, it's not. America does not fucking play by those rules. Like, you have to figure this out by now. You have to have figured this out by now, please. We're literally starving the island of Cuba as a side project that we've basically put on autopilot. America is not held back by any fucking rules or standards whatsoever. And the rest of the world will never see that either unless you militarily embarrass the country, okay? You have to create military deterrence, which is what the IRGC is doing right now. Any kind of, like, mention of international rights is so ridiculous. Like, it's just not going to work. Yeah. Iran believes in the American people more than I do at this point is right. It's crazy. It's crazy. Also, the Shia smirk, once again. Many people are saying it. Put that in the Shia smirk compilation. Next to Arakshi, next to the Ansar Allah guy. Is always the same. Exit had a really funny meltdown as well. I can't wait to watch that. That was really funny. He's like, oh, the strait is open. We just have tactical ambitions, and we're going to accomplish those tactical ambitions. But if we don't accomplish those tactical ambitions, then we won't. And everyone needs to shut up.
AI and what they've done with it. They showed buildings in Tel Aviv burning to the ground, high-rises burning. They showed buildings in Qatar. They showed buildings in Saudi Arabia.
How bad is the damage in Israel, really? I don't have social media. It's not as bad as people presented. The damage in Israel is nowhere near as bad as the way, like, AI videos show. The way there's a lot of misinformation around it. But this is not even about, like, punishing Israel. This is about punishing America. Okay? Because you can chip away at their stockpile. You can chip away at their defensive munitions slowly but surely. But given the weapons that Iran has been using to strike Israel, they're not even trying to do that, really. Hezbollah is certainly eating away at the stockpile a lot more than Iran is right now. Because the stuff that Iran is using, for the most part, either get intercepted in transit, or the ones that they use, the ones that Iran uses that don't get intercepted are cluster munitions. I know people say, oh, they're actually, they're like re-entry vehicles. It's not technically a cluster munition. It's functionally a cluster munition. Please, it's ridiculous. It's a distinction without difference, the way that they're deploying some of these weapons, right? It opens up a super high altitude and dumps like 80 fucking warheads on top of, they have 80 submunitions that they're dumping on top of like the Israeli defenses, and that the reason why they're using that is very clearly to create an insecure environment for like regular Israeli society. They wouldn't be using that if they wanted to destroy the defensive capabilities that Israel has, right? Because those are not interceptable, right? Those are not interceptable munitions. That's kind of deliberately why they're using those munitions. If they wanted to eat away at the Tamir interceptors that they have, or the aero ballistics that they have, the ballistic munitions that they have in the aero systems, they would be using different kinds of ballistic missiles that require that are interceptable, right? As Theodore Apostle notes, when an interception happens, it's very obvious there's a big explosion in the incoming warhead, and the fact that we don't see this often is a mark of how rare it is. Look, that's what an interception, a successful interception, looks like. Whoa. DoorDash driver got really nasty with me because he heard your voice in the background. Law. Wait, what? You got a hater? You are wrong on the demarcation between MERVs and a cluster. Dude, it's a distinction without a difference, okay? It doesn't matter. I don't know why you guys are like holding on to this as though, like, it doesn't matter, because guess what? America and Israel refused to sign on to the cluster munitions provision anyway. So they're not even it doesn't matter. They love deploying cluster munitions themselves. America and Israel both do this. And on top of that, it's just on top of that, like it's silly to try to make this distinction when the goal of the way that they're using these missiles is basically a cluster munition. It's not interceptable. That's why they're using it. Chatter's right. Clusters hit indiscriminately after deploying at very low altitude. MRVs can further target after deployment. No, most of the ones that they're using are not fucking targeting. The submunitions are not targeting. They're just falling. They're falling in whatever random area that they're hitting. And those munitions normally are supposed to be like a shotgun blast, and they're supposed to open up much closer to the target to make sure that the area that it's spreading, the area of impact that it spreads to, is where, like, I don't know, the military barracks are, for example. Like, that's what they're supposed to be used for, but they're exploding them at such high altitude so that it doesn't get intercepted. That the goal there is to just have 80 submunitions that open up on top of the Israeli airspace and fall on top of cars, fall on top of buildings. It's like the goal is to have a widespread area of impact. So they're not even using the ballistic munitions in the way that they normally would. It's a semantics argument. I don't have enough missile autism. I'm just literally looking at what they're doing and how they're using these munitions. Normally, from what I understand, the way that those ballistic missiles are used is it's like anti-personnel, right? You're supposed to use it like a shotgun blast, as like a bird shot, spread it into a limited area. You can still obviously target a limited area, a smaller area, depending on where you open up the cluster munitions. But the way that the submunitions get deployed is such high altitude that it's very clearly being used as a way to maximize the damage. And the reason why I am saying that is, in spite of the fact that America doesn't give a shit anyways, it doesn't fucking matter. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because if they wanted to if they wanted to, or if they had the capability still to do so. I don't know if this is I don't know if this is within the capacity of the Iranian launches anyway at this moment, right? Or whether it's for some other reason. And I suspect that it's because their capabilities have been attrited successfully through endless American strikes. Like they have like limited denial capabilities regardless inside of Iran, and you know, America doesn't have like complete air superiority, but like they've actually been able to shut off entry points in these caves, blow up enough TELs. Like it's obvious that they're having a harder time deploying some of their older missiles, right? Because they have a massive stockpile of older tech that they could just dump on top of the Israeli airspace right now if their primary goal was to destroy the air defense capabilities by the Israeli air defense capabilities by just like constantly pummeling Israel over and over again. Iran is claiming to be using the old stuff, not the new stuff. This is true. Iran has been using the old stuff, but the oldest stuff that they have in their stockpile, they were using in the first couple of days. If you remember, the strikes were much more frequent, much more intense, and America had not been able to successfully figure out where the launch sites were, and was not doing like you could see with the density of how many missiles that Iran was launching at Israel in the first couple of days, as opposed to right now where there's like 4 to 5. Most of them get intercepted. And the ones that don't get intercepted are the ones that open up way above in high altitude that just pepper submunitions on top of the Israeli airspace. Also, the casualty numbers have gone up again. U.S. troops wounded in Iran war surpasses 200 across 7 countries. Those numbers are going to keep going up as well. The submunitions are not independently targetable, so they are MRVs rather than MIRVs. However, they are functionally a bit different from cluster munitions because the MRVs are fewer and more powerful, making them perfect for hitting targets like airfields. And each of the MRVs are strong enough to blow up planes on the airfields. Cluster munitions are more used against personnel since they have more bomblets that are weaker. Sure. Israel's actively demolishing and using banned munitions in South Lebanon. I know. Israel doesn't abide by any fucking international rule. It doesn't matter. If you know this much about missiles and that's not your literal job, you need to do some self-reflection. No, I think there are a lot of people who are deeply autistic and autistic in the missile sense. It's not semantics. There's a huge difference between the two in terms of strategic capability and the implications for the recipients of the missile. Iran isn't using MIRVs, which would let them hit a bunch of targets precisely. They're only firing missiles with cluster warheads, MRVs. Soviets getting MIRVs is a part of why America finally sought nuclear arms control. Okay. I don't know why we're arguing over this. The reason why I was bringing up the type of munitions that Iran is using is if their goal is to deteriorate the munitions stockpile that Israel has, like their defensive munitions stockpile, then they wouldn't be using the type of missiles that they're using currently. They would go back to the previous barrage, like overwhelming barrage, like volley after volley process that they had in the first couple of days. They're not doing that. And the two different schools of thought on it is, one, they're not doing that because they're incapable of doing that because too many of their TALs have been destroyed, and they haven't been able to keep up with the destruction, because like the American and Israeli side are just like constantly pummeling them with these aerial missions, right? And also with the loitering drones and drone strikes that also take place as well. And the other school of thought is that Iran is simply not doing that because they have a higher interception, or they have a higher strike targeting efficiency, and therefore they're changing the types of missiles they're using. But I think that's a little bit cope. I think the truth is America is lying about how much they have been able to forcefully attrit Iran's launching capabilities. But I also do think that Iran's launching capabilities have experienced attrition. And that is the reason why they're not using the same consistent volley principle that they were using initially. And also because they're bunkering in for a much longer war. Iran's goal isn't to actually destroy the enemy militarily. It's to make themselves so disruptive to the flow of commerce that the aggressors have to give up. They can achieve that with just a few successful drones a day or even the persistent threat of it. Exactly. For sure. I just find it very suspect that besides the plane incident in Iraq, the only U.S. soldiers who have died were in a single attack on day one. But it's also hard to believe that they could keep a lid on the fatalities given all the civilians that would just know. Just weird. I agree. I still suspect. Well, I've explained to you guys how they hide it. So the majority of the, first of all, a lot of the guys that are there are defense contractors, right? And defense contractors don't have the same, like the American military doesn't have the same responsibility of reporting defense contractors that die in the same way. Like even if it's a combat casualty, if it's a defense contractor, they just you don't hear about it. If it's an active duty service member, they have also ways of holding back the information, I guess. Like they can. If they're wounded in action, you don't know the severity of the wounding. You don't know how bad it is. I mean, they're knocked out of combat for the most part, though. So that's why the casualty numbers are important. The casualty numbers are fairly indicative of like how many people have been knocked out of combat. Honestly, the number of operations by Iran have not decreased. They just change around depending on what their next targets are. It's believable because didn't they close all the bases in the Middle East? They're mainly operating out of Europe and their aircraft carriers now. You don't define terrorism as a few drones a day or the threat of it to shut down the world oil supply. A few pop shots inspire fear in order to gain false representation of power. Yeah, it's called asymmetrical warfare, for the record. You can't we're talking about sovereign states now. This is state versus state violence. Unfortunately, the terrorism designation doesn't work as easily because it's not a non-state actor. You could say it's a rogue state, but you can't say it's a non-state actor. So it's not as easy to belittle and bully and ruthlessly lie about a foreign adversary in spite of the American need and the American capabilities of doing so by way of mainstream media. There's a reason why it's a little different. You don't hear from Hamas militancy, but you do hear from the foreign minister of fucking Iran, a country with 93 million people in it. Okay? Do you understand how things change? The dynamic shifts a little bit. Like, I'm sure the media would love to refuse to cover that, but there's obviously a lot of appetite from the masses to hear from the other side on this. It's much easier to belittle. It's much easier to propagandize the public against terrorism when it's a non-state actor, when it's a militant resistance group fighting against a foreign ally that is the most important foreign ally of all time. That's why it's so easy to say Hezbollah are terrorists, Hamas are terrorists. They're barbaric, they're ruthless, they're brutal. But it's a little bit different when it's actually a state actor that has been wronged by us, that has been shot at by us. We started this. So yeah, you can fucking sit around and be like, well, why are they using cluster munitions? Why are they using drone warfare? Isn't this a threat of terror? But at that point, we triggered these events. They didn't do this for 47 years. We triggered these events now. So it's our responsibility. It's just asymmetrical warfare. Okay? Yeah, we dropped a JDAM on a fucking school. We dual striked it. We double tapped it. It's crazy. We do not have the moral upper hand here at all. Okay? The only reason is Hezbollah not a state actor? Technically, no, because it's a paramilitary formation. It has state representation. It's an active party in the Lebanese parliament. However, its paramilitary operation is technically not a part of the state. Lebanon has a standing military. It's fucking toothless. It's ineffective. It's by design ineffective. But no, Hezbollah's militant wing is not considered a part, like an official part of the state at all. It's a paramilitary. I think they still have a responsibility to follow the laws of war, but it's not the most important part of the equation given the nature of the conflict. I agree. But if your enemy is not doing that and you have limitations as far as like how you can fight back, you're going to engage in asymmetrical warfare. It gives you a significant upper hand, but you know, they're the ones who are fucking violating it all the time. When this is the problem with violating the rules of conflict, right? Because if sovereign states that are on the opposing side also start violating the rules of conflict because their enemy is not giving up, we're not giving up, right? We're not letting up. We're not trying to de-escalate. We're just simply escalating. Then, yeah, they will do that too. That's kind of the whole point of why we had these rules set in the first place, don't you think? I mean, it's a little bit like the game theory, right? It's just at a certain point, our enemies are also going to say, all right, fuck it. Like, if you're not playing by the rules, we're not going to play by the rules. This is the second time we've engaged in an act of perfidy. Second negotiation process that was used as a way to mask a strike from first Israel, but this time a strike both from Israel and the United States of America. What the fuck do you expect? And that first strike this time around literally decapitated the entire state. Totally unheard of, right? And on top of that, killed 150 plus little girls in a school. And then Israel turned around on the third day and decided to engage in chemical warfare by blowing up the oil refineries in Tehran and making oil rain upon 15 million people that live there. It's unheard of. It's not going to happen. Like at that point, you would be a fool not to do everything in your power to like fight back and defend your sovereignty, defend your people. We hit a desalination plant. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous. We've been hitting hospitals nonstop. Iran hasn't done so. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. Look at the number of civilian casualties from the Iranian retaliatory strikes in the Gulf states and in Israel, as opposed to the civilian casualties in Iran. You about to get clipped with that? I don't care. Shut the fuck up. The point I'm making still stands. Argue against the point I'm making instead of posturing about like a potential clip. Oh no, I can't believe it. People are going to get mad at me. Okay? Think about the civilian casualties think about the civilian casualty percentage in the countries that Iran is bombing currently, as opposed to the civilian casualties in Iran, right? America and Israel have a far greater percentage of civilian casualties than Iran does. So once again, while it might not seem to be the case, because it's a scary, barbaric foreign adversary, a scary Muslim country that's doing this, right? And therefore, they're the ones who are always in the wrong. That's like the overall attitude that many Americans had. They are still more restrained than we are. The U.S.-Israeli war has killed 2,400 Iranians in just 2 weeks. This includes 1,300 civilians, but also more than 1,000 soldiers, many of whom were conscripts doing mandatory military service. All of them were killed in an unnecessary war launched while Iran was already at the negotiating table. Every life lost is a tragedy. They're going to clip that. People are making fan cams of Arakshi on TikTok. I don't think people realize the terror jacketing shit ain't going to work on this one. Yeah. Terror jacketing still works when you talk about non-state actors, but it's much more difficult to create a messaging environment where you're like saying that our enemies are terrorists when the enemy is a competent sovereign state. That's the reason why Israel gets away with doing unlimited terror and genocide against both the Palestinian resistance front, but then also against the Lebanese population. And the overwhelming attitude here in the Western news is Hezbollah are the bad guys. Hamas and PFLP, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, are the bad guys. Even though Israel's the party that's doing the genocide, Israel's the party that is bombing the shit out of densely populated civilian areas in Lebanon, bombing beaches where people have evacuated to, bombing hospitals in Lebanon, killing healthcare workers. It's just ridiculous, right? It's totally fucking ridiculous. Who's the terrorist? That's why I always say, whenever people come in here and be like, oh, dude, you're a terrorism supporter, I say, I don't support America. I don't support Israel. I don't support America's wars. I don't support Israel's wars. I don't support terrorism at all.
Burning, and they weren't burning. They weren't hit. It was all AI-based. Terrible. It's terrible. And that's their only, I think that's the only thing they do well. They're negotiating. And we always talk. When, somebody said, well, would you talk? Why would you even talk to them? I talk to everybody because sometimes good things come out of it. But I don't know if they're ready yet. They're taking a pounding. I don't know if they're ready yet. And we don't even know their leaders. Look, all of their leaders are dead, as far as we know, but they're all dead. We don't know who we're dealing with. We knocked out the first group. Then the second group met, 88 met to pick the leader because the first group was all dead. And the second group got knocked out. They're all dead. Then a third group met. I would think they're a little nervous about meeting. I don't know if they're nervous. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're crazy. If they're not nervous, then they're crazy. But we met with the next group, but we don't know who their leader is. We have people wanting to negotiate. We have no idea who they are. Yeah, please, Peter.
Thanks, President Trump. What are your advisors telling you about the Ayatollah's son, the new supreme leader? What are they telling you about
Well, it's
him?
not only them, it's you people. I mean, a lot of people are saying that he's badly disfigured. They're saying that he lost his leg, one leg, and he's been hurt very badly. Other people are saying he's dead. Nobody's saying he's 100% healthy. And he hasn't spoken because the Ayatollah would sit and he'd spew hate from a form of a throne. Not as nice as a throne. I like the English throne much better. But it was a fancy chair. But he'd spew hate from his chair. But you'd see him a lot, right? This one we haven't seen at all. So that could be for a lot of different reasons. We don't know, Peter, if he's dead or not.
Now that you've announced...
I will say this, nobody's seen him, which is unusual.
Something else. Now that you've announced that the U.S. has destroyed all of Iran's mine-laying ships, why can't the U.S. just immediately reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we could, but it takes two to tango. We have to get people to take their billion-dollar ship and drive it up. If when Pepe has his big sugar ships coming around and they cost $1 billion, and we say, I think it's okay now, Pepe, take your ship, drive it through the Strait of Hormuz. He may say, let me wait a little while, because it takes ship owners, and these ships are very expensive. They can cost up to $2 billion. So they don't want to take a chance that, gee, I think you'll be okay. They got to know it. So they don't have to set, we don't know if they even set any mines. But the thought that they may have is enough to keep people from saying, we don't need it. Now, we are pounding that area, that coast, as you know, left side. We're pounding it, like really pounding it hard. And again, they may have no mine set. We hit every one of their mine droppers. They call it the mine layers, right? The ships. They're pretty sophisticated ships. Every one of them is gone. But it only takes one. So it's a little unfair. You win a war, but they have no right to be doing what they're doing. But we're hitting them very hard. And today is a big day. We're pounding a certain area that has very much to do with the Strait. And I think we'll get it going very soon. In addition, we do have other nations coming in. You need people to watch and people to see. We have other nations coming in. Yes, please.
If the United States is working to secure the Strait of Hormuz for the benefit of other countries like China, and our allies aren't yet stepping up to your standard, is the United States getting back to being the world's policeman?
Look, the United States should not be very much involved. They can on a certain basis. They've been doing it for a long time. But I've always said, if you look back years ago, I said, why aren't we being reimbursed? These are the richest countries in the world. Why aren't we being reimbursed for maintaining the Hormuz Strait? And why aren't we being reimbursed for that? I've said that for years. You can go back. They reported on it yesterday. I've been saying a lot of things about the Straits. Number one, I said it's the one advantage they have. But that's a suicidal advantage because they kill themselves more than they kill the rest of the world. And there are things you can do. With time, there are other things you can do. But I think we're going to have the situation straighten out pretty quickly. And I think we're going to have some good help. And I think we're going to be disappointed in some nations, too. And I'll let you know who those nations are.
One of your advisors, David Sachs, said the other week that the U.S. should, quote, declare victory and get out of the Iran war.
Yeah,
he also warned that if the conflict escalates, Israel may contemplate the use of a nuclear weapon. Has he shared that assessment with you?
No, yes. And Israel wouldn't do that. Israel would never do that. And, yeah, there's a theory. You pounded them to hell.
Not my Israel.
And you could just leave now, and it'll take 10 years for them to build back not nearly what they have right now.
Not
and I guess
my
that's another
Israel.
theory, but we want to have it ended so that another president doesn't have. Look, for 40.
Is Trump live right now, chat? AIPAC's not a foreign lobby, but it's not really foreign. AIPAC's an American group funded and run by Americans who think Israeli and U.S. interests are largely the same. I don't think casting AIPAC as foreign helps any moral or strategic way. AIPAC absolutely is a foreign lobby. AIPAC also coordinates with the state of Israel and increasingly with just one of its political factions. Here's one ex-AIPAC official talking about how the lobby more and more aligned with Likud, and a former AIPAC staffer charging it worked with Netanyahu against Oslo. I agree this makes things complicated, though coordinating with one political faction versus another doesn't prove AIPAC is an agent of Israel, since if it is, they would align with the interests of whatever faction controls the government. During Oslo, that would have been labor. AIPAC absolutely should be considered a foreign lobby because it is entirely for foreign interests. There's nothing that comes close to this, okay? Every single other diaspora, if we are to consider diaspora, if we are to consider American Jews diaspora, which I don't, right? But like that's the major distinction. It's the double standard here. American Jews are not diaspora populations. They're Americans, right? They're American citizens, and they are technically funding and funding the interests of AIPAC, funding AIPAC as American citizens do. There's no other advocacy group that comes near the level of prominence and the level of control that AIPAC has over the American Congress that is invested entirely and openly in the interests of a foreign nation state. Okay? Nothing comes close. And yet they do not get fair restrictions at all. This is the reason why people will say, don't call it a foreign lobby, even though it very clearly is a foreign lobby, because it's invested in Israel. Why wouldn't you consider them diaspora? I don't like the notion of saying that American Jews are diaspora. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's true, because they're American. They're American citizens. They've been around in the United States. Many of them have lived here for longer than the nation state of Israel has ever existed, right? Like, they're not coming from another country into the United States of America. Some might be like dual citizens who are Israeli, right? But the overwhelming majority of American Jews are multiple generation American. They're American Jews. They didn't come here from Israel. They were here before Israel even fucking existed. Or they came here from places like Poland. They came here from Eastern Europe for the most part, right? They didn't come here from Israel. Yeah, like Felix. Think about like Felix Biederman, right? His, I think, great-grandparents were, like one of them was a pianist in the fucking Tsarist army or something, right? And then they came to America. They came to America from Russia, right? Is he a diaspora Jew that is technically Israeli? Like, no, of course not. It's fucking ridiculous. The problem, of course, is that Israel and many Zionists use this designation, and it's one that I, as an outsider, as you know, a non-Jewish person, I can't make that argument anyway. No, I mean, even if it's correct, it doesn't matter. Like, most Zionists will say, the fuck are you talking about? No, we are diaspora. We are diaspora to Israel. Anyway, he's live talking about fraud.
Right again. And we can't have this stuff happening.
He's washed.
We have to be respected. And
he's so fucking washed.
We'll take some questions, but let me sign this first.
Ooh, question time. Oh, this is going to be good.
Before I decide not to, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't forget not to, but maybe I'll decide not to. I would decide not to. If I didn't think they could do the job, I would decide not to. but that'll be a terrible thing. I think they're going to find numbers, Andrew. I think you're going to find numbers that are far higher than you even think. And you know, Andrew came to us. He said, "Sir, he's read the stories about Minnesota. We know California is many times worse, but Minnesota is terrible. They're all terrible. Those cities are terrible. New York is terrible. What's going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're talking about is just country changing. It's country changing money. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable country where you can lower your taxes substantially for people. And I think you have an opportunity to do it. And I think you two guys are the right guys. If you guys can't do it, we've got a problem, because nobody else will be able to do it.
Yes, sir.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from our wonderful media. Okay. Here you go. Very important. That's a big deal. We've been working on this very long.
Yes,
See,
sir.
right? Will?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation. Why do you suppose then that leaders in recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's been taking place? And
because they're crooked. They make money, they gain power, they use it for power. Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block, 100%. They make a deal with the Somalians, they all vote because they're on a gravy train. It's money first, power second. A lot of people say power first. No, it's money first, power second. Do you ever see where, like, Mercedes, people come over from Somalia, they have no money, and now they're buying Mercedes-Benz cars, okay? It's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world or something. We're going to find it. And Minnesota is really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general is totally corrupt. Just like the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. She's a highly corrupt person. Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These are corrupt people. And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, we're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job,
thank you, sir.
No, it's possible. If they don't do a good job.
Oh, J.D. Vance spotted.
The country's sort of in
wow,
trouble.
he's
Yes,
alive.
Thank you, sir.
I thought he was in the cuck cave. You know, considering that Trump is waging an unholy and very unpopular war, and I thought J.D. Vance, the cuck, would be hiding.
Skepticism of foreign adventurism. Are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president. What the president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agreed with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements, with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on terror previously.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb
this is
presidents.
awesome.
And I trust President Trump
love
to
this
get the
argument.
job done.
No, you
do a
see,
good job for the American
Trump
people,
is
and make
known
sure
for being smart.
Aren't repeated, absolutely.
Thanks, sir.
Look, JD's been great, but here's the simple thing, and I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody. Peace through strength. But you know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I've called them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching the world. And they're violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the streets. And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the place. But even if there weren't, who's going to do that? You know, who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have latest in line machine gun, right? And every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, you know, feel very strongly, like I do about wars. And I say, do you think Iran is violent, and do you think their people are violent? Yes, leadership. Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon, which is massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful.
Oh, it's so powerful, so powerful.
And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. I said, and you don't want to fight war? No, we don't want to fight war. So these are naive people that frankly are stupid. If you believe that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you, because they would use it within, the only question is within 1 hour if they get it, or 1 day. They will use it, and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They'll start with Israel, but they will blow up. And you got to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were blowing up the people that handle their accounts. They're sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then come after us. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. Because it's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000-pound bomb. So I don't know how they do it, because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons, and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not sent this incredible machine, times numerous others, to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place. And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that, I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid. So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done, because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft
So good,
weapons.
man. Thank you.
They have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible thing. I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JD understands better than most, if you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 a.m, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and you see him, 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country. I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I didn't know I'd have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people, in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this military conflict that's taking place in Iran?
Well, they should be thanking me because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you. But
they're getting their oil, dumbass. Why would they have to thank you?
95%. China, 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea.
Again, it's just cope. It's just fucking cope. There's no other way to read this other than cope, okay?
The Straits, or as they call it, the Strait.
You are responsible for the closing of the Strait. You are not responsible for opening it. It hasn't been open yet. Well, it's open for China. It's just not open for everybody else.
That really were right up front. I would announce their name now, other than maybe they'd prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this: it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles. They're down to a small portion of their drones, and we've demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Cork Island, took out every single thing in Cork Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something's going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes. But there are some countries that greatly disappointed me. And, I'm the one that got them to pay from 2% to 5% of GDP, NATO. And I get along great with those countries in NATO, but I always said, the problem with NATO is we'll always be there for them, but they'll never be there for us. And when I hear the UK, which was sort of considered the Rolls-Royce of allies, right? When you say they were the oldest and they were going to be there. And I say it would be really helpful if you'd send over a couple of ships, and if you have some minesweepers, which they do, be very helpful. And the Prime Minister is a nice man. I think he's a very nice guy. He says, well, I'd like to ask my team. I said, you don't have to worry about a team. You don't have a team. You're the prime minister. You can make a decision. Well, I have to speak to my people. I said, you don't have to speak to anybody. So it was very disappointing. And then after we obliterated them, destroyed their military, their whole thing, and it became a much safer zone, he said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after we win. I want them before we start. I don't need your aircraft carriers after we've already won. So, those things are very disappointing. And you have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, would it be possible for us not to get involved? I've been saying it for a long time. This is the greatest thing to come out of this. We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there. Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country. Some have been very good. 1 or 2 have been great. I'll tell you who the great ones are at the right time. But there have been some that were right up there, Peter. They were right up there. They wanted to do it so much. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. You said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands and thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is. And
it doesn't matter if you know where it is. You can't reach it.
It's incredible what we've done. I tell you, what we've done. Do you know, if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal,
oh my God,
you would right now, well, Israel would be gone. It would be incinerated. And probably the Middle East likewise. And remember, they have all of those missiles. And I heard they were sending missiles that now, Trump. UAE.
Trump, don't say that.
That's strange. UAE
Very
is like the
different
banker
media environment for that kind of sentiment, bro.
They're like the banker. Qatar, their neighbors, they got along okay. Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, Kuwait is getting hit. Bahrain is getting. All these countries are getting hit. There was no expert that would say that.
It's so confusing. Wonder why they're getting hit.
Like, gee, should you have known? And if we did know, big deal. I mean, we have to do what we have to do. But we hit them so hard like nobody's ever been hit. We hit them very hard. And we've extinguished most of their missiles. We've extinguished most of their drones. We've extinguished most of the places where the missiles and the drones are built. We've fully extinguished 2 layers of leadership and probably a third, if you believe some stories. So we only have one thing. They have a little choke point, and they've used it very well for years, but it doesn't work. But I think this, if some of these countries that we've been good to for years, and maybe more important than that, some of these countries that get 90% and 95% of their energy from Hormuz, the Strait. Hormuz, a famous, wonderful, beautiful place, but you wouldn't want to be necessarily sailing a boat there right now.
I would not.
Okay, you know why? Not because of them, because of us. Because we've taken out their entire Navy. We've taken out every one of their drone, they call it a drone layer, a mine layer. There's specific boats that are meant to put mines on. How would you like to have a nation that has 22 boats where their sole function, they're very different looking boats. You wouldn't want one for your family. They're not pretty. Their sole function is to lift a mine into the water and drop it a certain number of feet down. But they had 22 of them. We've taken out all of them. But you can probably drop them off other boats. So we don't even know. By the way, we don't know that any mines have even been dropped. But the thought that they would scares people that have billion-dollar ships. Yeah, please.
Thank you, President Trump. I'd like to ask the Vice President about his plans to go after possible fraud in California and New York. We know, of course, about Minnesota. And President Trump, first, could I ask you, you said earlier today that the new Supreme Leader, Vital Khomeini, you don't know if he's dead or alive.
Ask him if he's gay.
Interesting reports about him today. There's one report that he just narrowly escaped death in the first airstrike.
By the way, Trump says that they're begging for a deal. Iranian officials, on the other hand, Dropside reports, have been saying the exact opposite. New at Dropside News, Iranian officials say they have been ignoring Witkoff's private requests to talk. Trump's special envoy has been texting Iran's foreign minister asking to start talks. Tehran says the war will end only when Iran believes it has established long-term deterrence. Two Iranian officials told Dropsite that Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff personally sent messages to officials in Tehran, including Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, last week exploring possibilities for resuming negotiations. Iran has not replied to Witkoff. The Iranian official told Dropsite News that Iran also received messages from the White House via third countries. Because of decisions made by Iran's top authorities, no response was sent to his messages, a senior Iranian official told Dropsite. The message here is clear. Iran has once again closed the window for any direct negotiations, the senior Iranian official added. The authority to declare a ceasefire rests solely with the country's supreme leader. It is not something that the foreign minister or any other official organization in Iran would send messages about to a foreign party. In response to a request for a comment, a White House spokesperson sent the Dropsite the following. The radical left-wing Dropsite News is clearly carrying water for the Iranian terrorist regime. And reports like these, based on pure fiction and citing unnamed anonymous sources, should be discarded immediately. Iran feeds this fake news. Iran feeds this fake news media outlet propaganda, and they publish it as fact, which is abhorrent. America last behavior. Operation Epic Fortnite Chungus will continue unabated until President Trump, as commander-in-chief, determines that the goals of Operation Epic Fortnite including for Iran no longer pose a military threat, have been fully realized. So I guess it's not a W then. I guess even in this like idiotic fucking statement, they're so mad, by the way. And this is a threat, for the record. Just understand, this is a fucking threat. And Muhammad Ali Shabani also is saying the same thing that Dropsite is saying. I'm told by usually reliable senior sources in Tehran that this is categorically false. One source even hinted at the Trump team supposedly making things up to manipulate energy markets. As always, time will tell what's really going on. Of course, this came from Barack Unit 8200 Ravid, okay? Direct communications channel between Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff has been reactivated in recent days. Yeah, that means Steve Witkoff is texting Abbas being like, bro, come on, throw us a fucking bone here, please. And they're like, no, you will know. Like, this is not a thing that you can lie about. You want to know why it's not a thing you can lie about? One, you can't really lie about it because Abbas Araghchi is just going on, mainstream news and openly saying that it's wrong. That's number one. And number two, the Strait of Hormuz is still fucking closed. Reminder to never trust Barack Ravid or an Axios report. Yeah. Barack Ravid is a misinformation agent, okay? It's still valuable. His reports are still valuable, just not in the way that you think they are. You're not supposed to read exactly what he's saying and think this is good, honest truth. You're supposed to read what he's saying to understand what the connective tissue between America and Israel, like what they want you to hear. If you want to understand what the Israeli position is, Barack Ravid is actually a fantastic reporter because his goal here is to do propaganda for both Israel and also the United States of America. That is the reliable, newsworthy aspect of Barack Ravid's reporting. So it's still reliable. It's still good. It's still newsworthy in and of itself. It's just you can't read it at face value and think, oh, this is going to happen. I place a much higher I place a much higher emphasis on what the drop side reporting looks like, especially as it pertains to the Iranian position. What is the Unit 82 referencing? Unit 8200 is like the IDF unit for PSYOPs and internet operations, shit like that. I'm just like jokingly referencing it. Unit 8200 is the unit that spends all their fucking bandwidth on my replies on Twitter.
I think it's a very small price to pay. And frankly, I thought it was going to go down much more. If you want I assumed that it was going to go down much more.
Some of you are going to die.
People don't understand to a large
extent. But that's a sacrifice
it's
I'm
a big
willing to make.
At a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people. They don't get there. When you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high.
Yeah, Barack Ravita, I think he was in
intellect, high
Unit 8200 as well.
People.
If I'm not mistaken.
Jasmine Crockett and her group. These are smart people. These are really smart people, and violent people, and vicious people, and some very nice people, and some are very nice but violent. They turn violent. But you know what? If I didn't do what I did, we would have been hit. Number one, very important, was the termination of Obama's horrible deal, and number two, this beautiful plane hitting them 8 months ago, whatever it was, and taking out their nuclear capacity. That totally threw them for a loop. If they had that bomb at either time, 5 years ago or 7 months ago, if they had that bomb would have been used almost immediately.
Mr. President, two questions on domestic policy, bringing it close to home. First of all, the Save America Act. What are you expecting this week when this vote takes place in the U.S. Senate? Will the Vice President's vote be necessary?
I think it's imperative that it gets done. I'm not sure it is. The Democrats have horrible policy. It's just incredible. But they stick together. It's the one thing they do. Their Supreme Court members stick together. Those appointed by a Democrat stick together. If Barack Hussein Obama appoints a member of the Supreme Court, that member never goes against him. And they're proud about it. They say, I don't give a damn if it's good or bad. That man appointed me and I'm never going to let him down. I don't say that's right, wrong. I just say they stick together. Republicans go the opposite way. If Donald Trump appointed me, I'm going to show the world that I can be totally just and I can be independent of Donald Trump. He's not controlling me. And I don't want to control them. I just want to have smart decisions. They gave us a decision on tariffs the other day that won't change tariffs. I can do it a different way. I always knew I could do it a different way. This was a little quicker, a little easier, a little better. But they gave it a decision that could cost this country $500 billion to pay people back, because now I have to start the tariffs all over again. Very simple. And what happens with the money I've already collected? Why didn't they say, starting from now, go the other way? $500 billion, perhaps. It's so sad. But one thing about the Democrats, they stick together like glue. They impeached me twice for absolutely no reason, unanimously. Fortunately, the Republicans stuck together, and it was pretty wild. But the Democrats have horrible policy, transgender
Ken is so
for
brave,
everybody,
saving the Strait of
open
Hormuz.
borders, men playing in women's sports.
That's my privateer, dude.
But the one thing they do have is they
A
stick
real
together,
pirate.
no matter how bad the policy. It's embarrassing to watch them try to defend it.
Do you think people are going to believe what he's saying? Yes, there are a fuck ton of morons out there who literally listen to every single thing that he's saying and agree with it and think it's the God's honest truth, even if it contradicts itself in the same exact moment,
Right? That's a 99% issue. Even among Democrats. Democrats poll at 89% on that. And then they have proof of citizenship. And then they have no mail-in ballots. No mail-in ballots. We have no mail-in. You go to California, they send out like 38 million ballots. Some Democrats get 7, 8 ballots. Republicans are a lot of times calling in, where's my ballot? Where's my ballot? They're lucky to get one. Jimmy Carter, probably the greatest thing he ever did. I thought he was a nice man, not a great president, to put it mildly. How did his attack work out in Iran? Not too good. I think ours is slightly better, wouldn't you say? But Jimmy Carter, the one thing he did after he left with Scoop Jackson and some others, they formed a very elite council, a committee that came out and said very strongly, no mail-in ballots, because if you have, we're the only country in the world that has mail-in ballots like we do. The only country in the whole world. People have tried it. France tried it and they went away. They're now doing paper ballots, watermark paper, which is very hard to cheat. So when you look at what happens with this country, we really have to fix it. That'll be very popular. The other thing we put in there just as best of, I call it the best of Trump. We have the three things I just said, right? But then I added on no men playing in women's sports, and I added in no transgender surgery, the mutilation of our children. We have no mutilation of our children, no transgender. I think they say that's an 80% issue. I think they're 99% issues, but whether they're 80% or 99%, the problem is we have a couple of Republicans. They shouldn't be allowed. They're horrible people, and they're willing to vote against anything. And we have all the Democrats who vote against it. So I think it hurts the Democrats to vote against it, because I'm going to instruct all the Republicans to say that so-and-so that they're running against voted against the saving of our children from transgender mutilation, right? That's pretty unpopular. They want men and women's sports. That's pretty unpopular. They want voter ID, but the Democrats don't. Everybody wants voter ID. Everybody wants proof of citizenship. And most people don't want mail-in voting because they know it's a fraud. Touches too many hands. I mean, the postman gets it, this one gets it, that one. So these are all issues that are in the 90s to 100. I would say some are virtually 100%. And the interesting thing is they're that way not only with the Republicans. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm talking about they're that way also, most importantly, with the people. The people of our country want voter ID. The people of our country want proof.
I think like tossing the fucking transgender provision into SMART is so stupid, and it totally gives the game away, where he thinks the only place where he has motion is the trans stuff, which he doesn't. The only reason why there's any movement on that stuff is because the Democrats have given up on even mounting a strong response to consistently attacking trans people. And that's precisely why in the polls, the only area where he's not underwater, even though his popularity in that area has also diminished, is the trans stuff. Like it's totally ridiculous. It very clearly serves as a distraction. And it's, I mean, obviously it's not a distraction for the actual trans people that are in the crosshairs here, but, you know, as is the case with everything else, like everything this guy touches turns into dust. So I do think we will win on that front as well. It's unbelievable, dude.
For people with learning disabilities, but not for my president. I think a president.
Trans people are not attacked, not wanting men and women's sports, and trans people. And this is the reason why Trump does this, by the way, for the cattle. Okay, this is precisely the reason why, because like there are cattle, and there's definitely cattle in every community that like they hear that and they go, oh yeah, that's right, this is perfectly valid. Trans people are not attacked, brother. Which reality do you live in? Okay. Like we want to basically register trans people and make it illegal for them to get any sort of medical aid. And you're over here talking about like, oh, it's just about men and women's sports. You're a fucking idiot. The trans women that participate in athletic competitions have already been written out. You understand that, right? There was like 49 NCAA athletes. Trump already banned them. And not only did he ban them, but he also consistently pressures individual states from fighting back against it. It's so stupid. Did that impact your gas prices? Does that make you feel safe? Does that make you feel better? Did it change your life at all? Yeah, meanwhile, in the state of Kansas, 1,700 trans people had their driver's licenses revoked. Like, how is that in any way, shape, or form improving your life? You're a fucking idiot. You're basically saying, mouth agape, I am so stupid that you can wreck the economy, you can destroy my future, you can go and send billions of dollars in aid to Israel and light up tens of billions of dollars in taxpayer-funded military assets, all at the behest of Israel as a foreign country. And as long as you say transgender, that's it. I'm locked in. I'm locked in all again. What do you think of trans women winning tournaments in women's space? Brother, this is not fucking 2024 anymore, okay? This is not 2023. I'm not even entertaining this fucking conversation. I'm not dignifying you with a fucking idiotic response. It's not a problem at all to you. And if you're stupid enough to think it is a problem for you, get the fuck out of my community.
They have nice land. They have nice landscapes.
Who cares? You're a fucking moron.
It's a beautiful island. I think they have great
Can't
people.
even answer
I
a
know so
basic
many
question,
people
Law?
from Cuba
Really?
who were treated terribly, and they're
I
over
am
here,
answering
they
it.
became
It's called
rich.
Who Cares? I don't give a
Very
shit. And neither do
entrepreneurial
you.
people, very
You're just
smart,
fucking
know a lot
stupid
from
enough
Florida,
to
especially.
say
So-
openly, as long
so
as you
many
bring this
people.
up,
A friend of mine
I'll be
started
a
with nothing. He's now the
servile
largest
little
owner of
cattle
gas
for you.
stations in the country and stuff. I mean, Cuban. I also know I was just with a fantastic person who's Cuban and made a fortune in sugar. You know, Fanjul family, right? And this family wants to go back to Cuba to visit it. They haven't been back in like 50 years or something. They largely come from Cuba. And we'll see what happens. They were asking me about that. They want to go back. Not only Fanjul, a lot of Cubans have said, oh boy, would they love to go back. I think Cuba, I don't know, it's in its own way, for tourism and everything else, it's a beautiful island, great weather. They're not in a hurricane zone, which is nice for a change, you know. They won't be asking us for money for hurricanes every week. But I think Cuba see the end. You know, all my life I've been hearing about the United States and Cuba. When will the United States do it? I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation.
Oh.
They were for a long time. Very violent leaders.
What?
Castro was a very violent leader. His brother's a very violent leader. Extremely violent. That's how
We're
they
literally
govern.
starving this fucking island, he's saying.
But a lot of people would like to go back. Okay, one more question.
A quick question on fraud for Vice President Vance. Mr. Vice President, you announced a couple of weeks ago in the EOB that the administration would be halting Medicaid payments
What a
to
sick
Minnesota until the state
thing to fucking
decided to
say.
take pervasive steps to root out fraud. Do you have an update to that specific situation? Do you think that could be a model moving forward for the task force for states that won't cooperate?
So I don't have an update there. Dr. Oz is looking to it, trying to work with the authorities in Minnesota to try to figure that situation.
The audacity of America in the process of starving the Cuban population right now, 11 million people living on this island, no longer have any energy for the past 3 months. Their energy grid just collapsed today. The audacity for the guy responsible for that bloodshed to turn around and be like, it's the Cuban leadership that's violent, actually. Insane.
I think the second tool, of course, we have, as the president mentioned, is we have law enforcement options. We know that some of this fraud is just bad. Some of it's criminal.
Okay,
we know
fuck
that
this fucking fraud conversation. Yeah. CNN breaking news. The Cuban energy grid has completely collapsed. It's suffered a total collapse. This is according to the country's power operator. It's the first nationwide blackout since the U.S. effectively shut off the flow of oil to Cuba. And we're so cruel that it's on autopilot, chat. That's what's so fucked up about the way that America operates. Like, this is not even a part of the consideration. Like, what we're doing in Cuba on top of what we're doing in Iran is not even something that people are considering. I do believe I'll have the honor of taking Cuba, President Trump says. Yeah. Fucking rapist president, dude. He is literally raping the land. He is raping the people. Like, he is such a goddamn rapist. in a way, perfect for America, I guess.
And breaking news into CNN, Cuba's electrical grid has suffered a complete and total collapse. This is according to the country's power operator. It's the first nationwide blackout since the U.S. effectively shut off the flow of oil to Cuba.
David Adler says, we're laying siege to the island of Cuba, turning off the lights in homes, hospitals, and the country's most critical infrastructure. These are war crimes, lethal, cruel, and criminal acts of collective punishment. It is sociopathy dressed up as foreign policy. And it's so crazy. Like I said, I cannot explain to you how cruel this is and how banal it is treated as, how normal it is. We are like, this is a war crime that has been ongoing for the past 3 months now. Okay? And what blows my mind about it is that most Americans are completely oblivious to it. They don't even care about it because at least with like the Iran situation, there is a negative impact that they can actually experience at home. With the Cuba situation, nothing, right? Cuba has never been a threat to us. Cuba has never been a threat to anybody else. Cuba has, as a country, been just an overall moral force. I normally say countries don't operate on moral boundaries. Cuba is one country that is unique. One of the only morally righteous forces on this fucking planet, historically. It's incredible. Hard to believe that there is any justice that will ever be served. How is Cuba morally good? I don't get how a state can have morality. I mean, it doesn't. But if it could, if states could behave as moral actors, Cuba would be one of the only states that you could see as a morally righteous state in its existence since the Cuban Revolution. This is the replacement for U.S. aid, by the way. That doesn't mean that the practice of U.S. aid was all good, but I still take that over hard power. No, for sure. Sending doctors on medical missions all around the world, even to the United States of America at times. On behalf of Cubans, no, you are wrong. Cuba is not a moral force, Lamau. Dude, if you do this fucking diasporoid shit in my chat one more fucking time, oh my God, every conversation has to be met with the diasporoid freaks of every country that we are doing unlimited maximum punishment to, where someone has to come in and be like, you don't understand. I'm a Cuban. On behalf of all Cubans, shut the fuck up. You don't know how bad it is. You don't know how much like the government has mismanaged everything. I know it's the government's fault, right? What was the government dressing as? What was the government wearing when we decided to fucking rape it? That's the argument that you're making. Your standpoint epistemology doesn't stand here. I need to make that very clear. You cannot utilize standpoint epistemology to justify American intervention, endless, senseless, cruel American intervention that is a war crime, a crime against humanity. Collective punishment is a war crime. America has never stopped collectively punishing the Cuban population. Wake the fuck up. We just spent the last 3 weeks of Iranians living in the Western world demanding that America and Israel intervene in the affairs of Iran. And now a lot of those voices have become silent. The reason why is because some of them at least have the capacity to feel shame. They feel the shame of agitating. No, the U.S. is wrong for blocking oil and the Cuban regime is a brutal dictatorship. It's not. Shut the fuck up. No, it's not. No, the fuck it's not. Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. Adolf Hitler could be a cruel tyrant that engaged in some of the worst crimes against humanity in the Holocaust, but also the USSR wasn't so great either. America wasn't so great either. You're fucking insane. Actually, no, it's literally worse than that. The argument that you're presenting is even worse than that. The argument you're presenting is equivalent to saying some of the Jews actually did deserve to get killed in the fucking concentration camps. That's basically what you're saying when you make this comparison. Yeah, Adolf Hitler was a ruthless tyrant and a fucking fascist of the highest order that engaged in the mechanized death of 6 million Jews, but have you considered some of those Jews were like tax evading? Like that's literally what you're saying here. It's so ridiculous. Oh my God. What did this guy say? Gusanito Gordo? Why did the Miami Cubans vote for Trump? Doing this to their island, the home of Cuba? Wait, why did you ban this person? And they're not asking like the bad question. It's because there's a lot of people that are living in the Western world that just straight up are fucking insane. Bro, people don't have food. What are you talking about? I have family there right now. Talk to them about how great Cuba is. Why the fuck don't they have food? I hate this dumb shit, dude. Yeah, it's because the Cuban, like, what do you think is going on? The Cuban government is like literally going, I hate my own population. I don't want to give them food. Is that what you think is going on? God damn, dude. Every fucking person. For the record, of course there are going to be people that are going to falsely present the equation while they're suffering, falsely assume that it's actually the fucking government itself that's like causing their demise, okay? Just like there are Americans who think banning transgender athletes from the NCAA competitions is going to make their lives better, okay? Like, think for a moment. Do you think the Cuban government is deliberately denying food to its own citizens? Do you think that's what's going on? This and the other conversation that's like always the top of mind is the antibiotics, like as though the Cuban government is like directly refusing to give medical aid to its own citizens on purpose. Why are they doing it? No one knows. There is never any fucking answer to this question. Okay? There's never an answer to this question. Why? Do you think that the Cuban government is deliberately starving its own citizens? Do you think that the Cuban government is deliberately refusing to render medical aid to its own citizens? Do you think that that is the case? How many instances of foreign intervention led by the United States of fucking America has been so devastating, and it always comes on the heels of arguments such as this one? Ridiculous. Yeah, Miami Cubans are reactionary. No, they have to ration because they can't grow food. The machinery is in tatters. I know. And then people assume that this is not, like, you know what it's like? Yelling at the Cuban government about the food supply in this current situation is like yelling at the fucking doctor in the emergency room while they're engaging in triage. It's not the fucking doctor's fault, brother. What are you talking about? Like, after like a mass shooting incident, you're mad at the doctors for engaging in triage rather than the fucking mass shooter, or rather than the government that allowed the mass shooter to have access to an arsenal of weapons that they can use on and deploy on a fucking civilian population at any given moment. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's always the same too. Think, oh, Palestine looks the way it does because of Hamas, not because of Israel and America. Iran looks the way it does right now because of the IRGC, not because of Israel and America. Jesus Christ. It's just so strange. It's always never the fault of the American government, even when the American government openly admits that they're doing this. You're talking to me in a moment where the Trump administration is saying, I'm going to take Cuba. It's going to be mine. After 3 months of collapsing the energy grid deliberately, what do you think that has? What kind of impact does that have on the regular citizens of Cuba? Yeah, bombing Iran in the middle of negotiations, while starving Cuba, while genociding Palestinians, while threatening to invade Greenland. The U.S. and Israel are the single greatest threat to humanity. Is not even close. We're all forced to live in the nightmare they create. There is a better future out there. We don't have to do this, okay? We are American citizens. Ask yourself that. Do I like this? Is this beneficial for me? Do I want this to happen? What can I do to change it? That's the purpose of this fucking broadcast. That's why I do this every fucking day for 8 hours a day. And there are still motherfuckers who come in here and try to do this standpoint epistemology to be like, no, you don't understand. As a Cuban, I think it's totally fucked up what the American government is doing to Cuba. But also they kind of deserve it because the Cuban government was asking for it. Think. Oh, why can't it be both? Why can't the government be terrible and the U.S. intervention worsen conditions? Because it's fucking bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. There are countries that have gone through unimaginable pain and struggle and have been able to completely rid themselves of American domination. And we see what those countries look like now. There are not many of them, but one country that you can give an example of is China. Okay. A lot of these other countries would look like China if America did not consistently destroy them. Okay. That's the problem. And it certainly, not only does this argument not apply to Cuba in general, it does not apply to Cuba at all, okay? Vietnam is another one as well, for sure. But the reason why I use China is because it's like completely sovereign. Not only does that argument not apply to Cuba at all, and every time I ask the questions to people who come in here with this argument, their answers are ridiculous, where it'll be like, well, the government actually arrests dissidents, right? It's like, yeah, they're under imperial siege. Of course they fucking have to keep things stable to the best of their goddamn ability so it doesn't fucking collapse entirely, okay? This is, like, it'd be great. It'd be great if that wasn't the fucking case, but you have to think, like, who is responsible for this? Is there a larger domineering force that is 90 miles off of its fucking coastline that literally owns a piece of Cuban territory? That's how much we dominate Cuba, that we give them $1 to rent out Guantanamo Bay from the Cuban government. They can't say anything about it. They can't do anything about it. People that come in here and say, why can't it be both? Just don't realize that they are playing a role in crafting State Department narratives. They're playing a role in crafting propaganda. The fuck do you mean? Why can't it be both? I'll give you another example. I already gave you the example of like yelling at the doctor for engaging in triage and not the mass shooter or the government that allowed the conditions for a mass shooting to take place once again. Another example would be like if someone came up to you, okay, you were a bully at school. Someone came up to you and shot you in the fucking head. Well, and then you go, well, you were a bully, so you deserve it. Is that how you would operate in that situation? Or would you be horrified by the crime of, you know, getting shot in the fucking head, having your friend get shot in the fucking head? Yes. How can you, in the process of like, we're not done. We're not done with, oh, well, we have to free the people of Iran and what that freedom looks like. We're not done with that story. It's happening right now, right? That bullshit is happening right now. And there are still people that go, yeah, but I'm going to do that exact same thing. I'm going to do that exact same thing, but this time for Cuba. And unlike Iran, you can't even say any of the things as far as like state repression or undemocratic principles in Cuba. You can't even fucking say that shit about Cuba. It's ridiculous. Just, you guys are just oblivious to how things operate in Cuba. You hear from your parents or your distant relatives that live on the island who are suffering, who are probably mad at the Cuban government as well. Some of them are not going to understandably recognize exactly what is the reason. They're going to blame the government. It happens. Okay? But taking that as like God's honest truth without like doing a little bit of digging, trying to comprehend what has taken place historically in Cuba, why they're in the conditions, why they're facing the conditions that they're facing, is ridiculous. You're a goddamn adult. Do you think Bob, for example, the MAGA dad Bob, would be an accurate reflection of how things are operating in America right now? Do you think the average MAGA person, for example, would be able to give an accurate assessment of how the American government is operating currently? If you can comprehend that American citizens are not a monolith, why the fuck do you think that your relatives in Cuba would be able to completely capture the fucking abuse while they're literally experiencing it? And that is the reflection of like the overwhelming Cuban attitude. Okay? It's ridiculous. Every time there's like any sort of protests that take place in Cuba, which during blackouts there are angry people that decide it's the government's fault and not America that's fucking starving it, okay? And then there are tens of thousands of people that fucking come out and take to the streets in opposition to that. Every single time in Cuba, every single time there is an anti-government protest that's like super limited, okay? And people will say, oh, it's because the government is repressive. There are tens of thousands more people that take to the fucking streets. There are very proud and very resilient people, but you never see that. You never see that in the Western news. You don't hear that from your relatives. So you just think that's not the case. Do we care about democracy or do we not? People will say, oh, well, the Cuban government's a single party state. It's just a communist party. Okay. Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how the Cuban election system works? They have incredibly localized versions of democracy. Not only do they have referendums, but even though every single person technically is a part of the Communist Party, every single person is elected to the power, they have a hyper-localized system of elections. But you didn't know that. And you never cared. You never entertained it. You never cared to learn about it. So you just go off on whims. I just think it doesn't matter. Whatever wrongs you think the Cuban government has committed, it's not for those reasons that the United States wants to dominate Cuba. That's also the other side of the story as well. The Cuban government even acknowledges this stuff. During the recent protests, it was reported that the state newspaper that the protests were reasonably distressed by the current conditions. Yeah, the fucking president came out and apologized for it. He's like, it's completely outside of my control, but I totally understand why you guys are frustrated. We want to fix the situation, but America will not let us breathe. It's one of the craziest things because like Cuba has literally never ever presented like a significant threat to the United States of America. Not even once. So why the fuck do you look at a situation of just rank cruelty, utterly unjustifiable cruelty, and seek out imperial narratives that give breathing room to the fucking arguments as to why there's sanctions to begin with? It's fucking ridiculous. The embargo placed upon Cuba since the Cuban Revolution was already unjustifiable. It was already cruel. It was cruel from its inception. It was cruel from the beginning. And now it is taken a totally new form, a complete siege, death and destruction that befalls the entirety of the Cuban population. And there are still people in this chat that try to tell me, well, my relatives in Cuba hate the government. Okay. I hate my government too, but that doesn't mean that I would be on board with every single fucking person in this country starving, children not being able to get the necessary surgeries in the hospitals because there's no energy in the country. The position that you are taking, you say Cuba was never a threat. What about the Cuban Missile Crisis? What about the Cuban Missile Crisis? Even the Cuban Missile Crisis and the way we talk about it here in the United States of America is so funny. Because the Cuban Missile Crisis, if we were being objective, would be called the Turkish Missile Crisis. We placed missile bases right on the ass cheeks of the USSR during the Cold War, and then the USSR responded by putting nukes in Cuba. But this was a wonderful thing that the USSR did because it allowed Cuba to remain sovereign as long as the USSR and that threat was there. USSR gave Cuba nuclear sovereignty. They weren't even Cuba's nukes, ironically enough. They were the USSR's nukes. Yeah, we were also threatening to invade Cuba before the crisis. That's the other side of it. Cuba, since the revolution, has always tried to work with the United States of America, just like Iran. Always tried to work with the West. Always tried to work with the United States of America. Always. From the inception. We just did not want an ideological... It wasn't even initially communist. The Cuban Revolution wasn't initially a communist revolution either. Like Fidel Castro was not a communist. If you look at the early analysis from the CIA, they say as much, where they're like, yeah, this guy's just like, he's a progressive, he's a leftist, he's a nationalist, he wants national emancipation. It makes sense. Now, Che Guevara, that's a different story. But Fidel Castro, he's not even like ideologically a communist. At times, the July 26 forces were sometimes at odds with the way that the Communist Party wanted to operate. Yes, Che Guevara is a communist. Fidel Castro initially was not. But it doesn't matter. Land reforms should not be met with the largest imperial superpower destroying your country, trying to destroy your economy, trying to strangle your country every step of the fucking way. It's ridiculous. Cuba is proof that even the most liberal-facing country basically operates like a major aid org internationally, can be painted as a villain. Exactly. Every single liberal interventionist argument falls apart when it comes to Cuba. You say, oh, well, they're homophobic. You can't say that about Cuba. Cuba is literally more woke than the United States of America. They had a constitutional referendum, I believe in 2019 or 2017, I think it was 2019, where the population came out and overwhelmingly voted to enshrine LGBTQ protections in the fucking Constitution by referendum. I believe 70% of the public voted to enshrine LGBTQ protections. Okay? Did you know that? No, you didn't, because you don't know anything. And you've never been curious about the countries that we fucking dominate. At best, if you have a little bit of curiosity, you look at a couple State Department written narratives and you go along with it. Cuba is proof that even the most liberal-facing country that basically operates like a major aid oriented international could be painted as a villain. You can be a democratic, pro-LGBTQ country and provide literally everything humanly possible to your population in terms of education and housing, and still the propaganda sticks for dumb fuck Americans. It's one of the most perverse, one of the most cruel things that we have done. This dumbass doesn't know what a liberal is. No, he's saying liberal in air quotes. He's saying like the liberal aesthetics, right? Of social liberalism, right? Like Cuba has it all. Cuba has that tenfold. The U.S. is trying to do what they did to Venezuela, but with Cuba, yes. But the problem with the Cuba side of things is that like they're willing to open up their markets. They're willing to privatize. They're willing to stop the pain, stop the bleeding. So it's not even like a full-blown ideological commitment to communism. Okay? They are. But the problem for Donald Trump is he doesn't just want that. He wants a trophy. Iran was willing to liberalize and open up their democracy, or open up their markets, democratize the markets as they call it. Okay? It doesn't matter. Iran is a little bit different because Iran is singularly in the hands of Israel. Whereas with Cuba, you can read the Cuban thing as like the Gusano Miami Cuban lobby. And also, Marco Rubio and his ambitions. It's what I never understood. Cuba could be what Vietnam is. Also, the U.S. having open markets and good relations, yet we decided to keep the embargo. Vietnam is very far away. Okay? Vietnam is very, very far away. And also, we invaded and occupied Vietnam for 20 years. We did untold amounts of war crimes in Vietnam. Cuba had a successful revolution against the American proxy, the American puppet, and we never let that go. It was at the peak of the Cold War, too. It's pure Cold War boomerism. Trump violated HIPAA. What is this?
We had one man who was very, very ill. It looked like he wasn't going to make it. I don't know. I won't mention his name. Should I? Do other people know his name? Do you want to mention it? He'll be proud. Go ahead. Tell him the story.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. President. Congressman Neil Dunn of Florida had some real health challenges, and it was very serious, and had a pretty grim diagnosis. And I mentioned it to the president, and I said, Congressman Dunn is a real champion and a patriot because he's still coming to work. And if others got this diagnosis, they would be apt to go home and retire. And
what was the diagnosis?
It was, I think it was a terminal diagnosis.
He would be dead by June.
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay. That's
that was
so funny. Anyway, let's get back to fucking Iran.
27 years, no president was willing to do what I'm doing, and they should have done it a long time ago. It would have been a lot easier. There's no president that wanted to do it, and yet every president knew. I've spoken to a certain president, who I like, actually, a past president, former president. He said, I wish I did it. I wish I did, but they didn't do it. I'm doing it, yeah.
Which president?
I can't tell you that. I don't want to embarrass him. It would be very bad for his career, even though he's got no career left. Go ahead, please.
You mentioned.
How about the man right
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, you mentioned that you're not entirely sure who you're dealing with, who the leadership is in Iran. Do you see a viable opposition movement still in that country following all of the protests that we had seen before the airstrikes, and kind of an opposition movement that could become a viable leader in Iran?
Well, the biggest problem, and we have brave people in this room, but the biggest problem that I see is that they put out a warning, and we have the warning. We get everything they get. And it said any protester that goes onto the street will be immediately shot and killed.
Yeah. Cuba could do Deng style reforms, which, by the way, even that's not good either, right? For America's interest, because look at China. Look at what a powerhouse China became. We don't like that. We don't want that, because the threat of a good promise comes into our backyard with Cuba. At least with China, it's far away. You can craft an Orientalist framework and say, well, they're Chinese, they're fucking weird, they're scary, whatever. But Cuba is literally 90 miles off the American coastline. Can you imagine a China-style governance 90 miles off of the American coastline? Motherfuckers would be taking the car boats from Miami to Cuba if that was the case. Americans already used to fly to Cuba for healthcare. And the conditions there are dire. Motherfuckers would be swimming to Cuba in shark-infested waters to go live there. So my point is, and you already are arriving at that conclusion here as well, Cuba could do Deng-style reforms. It seems that that's the direction they were inevitably going to go to. But there's a deep hatred and embarrassment among the defense establishment that Cuba could dare be defiant so close to our coastline. It's a Cold War embarrassment. That and the desire for South Florida votes. It's not even the desire for South Florida votes, because then it doesn't make sense why the Democrats would care. The Democrats would be totally aligned on this stuff, right? Because the Democrats lost the South Florida votes. The South Florida voters are unimaginably reactionary, let's say, the ones that do care about this shit. They're never going to vote for the Democrats anyway. The last time they did vote for a Democrat was unironically a Democrat that was opening up Cuba and normalizing relations with Cuba. His name was Barack Obama. He's the last Democrat that won the majority of Cuban voters. Yeah, Obama gave Cuba sanctions relief in exchange for opening up their markets. And that was a moment. That was a moment where there was unironically room to fucking breathe. Remember the Cuban journalist that I talked to, who I'll be hanging out with when I'm down there, that said that like there was room to develop, room to grow, room for prosperity in Cuba for once. And then Trump came in and destroyed it. Unfucking believable, dude.
This is a little tougher than the American way. This is not quite as tough as, nobody can believe it. So I can't imagine, they don't have guns. And the other ones have guns. Highly sophisticated machine guns and AK-47s and other kinds of guns. And they did that with the women. So the women had 250,000, even 500 people protesting a year ago. And they shot women right through the middle of the forehead with snipers. And they didn't have to do many. About 10 went down bleeding profusely. And 250 to 500,000 women went running in the other direction. Because they can be brave, but they're not stupid. And they have no gun, and you have snipers in buildings specifically for this reason. So a woman goes down falling, bleeding from the head, and it doesn't take long for that to spread. And when that spreads, that crowd dispenses. And nobody else has been able to do that to the extent that these people are violent. They killed a minimum 2 weeks ago, 32,000 people. So, and they put out actually a notice 2 days ago, if you protest, you will be shot and killed. So, I don't know. I would say Mike Johnson's the only person I know who has the courage to go out in that kind of an atmosphere. I don't think so. Yeah.
Have your advisors told you anything in terms of how long we can expect gas prices as high as they are right now?
I don't need advisors to tell me that. I know what it is. You know, the Prime Minister of UK, United Kingdom, yesterday told me, I'm meeting with my team to make a determination. I said, you don't need to meet it with the team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make your own. Why do you have to meet with your team to find out whether or not you're going to send some minesweepers to us or to send some boats? I said, you don't have to meet with your team. It's the same thing here. I can tell you that when this is over, oil prices are going to go down very, very rapidly. So is inflation, so is everything else. But frankly, much more important than short-term, even long-term oil prices, you can't let the most violent, vicious country in the last 50 years have a nuclear weapon, because the Middle East will be gone, Israel will go first, without question, and they'll certainly take a shot at us before we get our act together and say we got to take them out. You can't let Iran, who's truly a nation of great terror and power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. they weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. And the other one.
Yeah, not allowed. Not allowed. We have our bases there. You can't hit them. Why are you hitting them? This doesn't make any sense. It should not be allowed.
But, you know, they fought back. They could have yielded. But think of it, if we weren't around, they had tremendous power. They had thousands of missiles, most of which we've terminated. They had thousands of drones. They were making drones and missiles all over the place. We've knocked out most of those factories. I mean, now they're sending out 2 or 3 missiles. Now, you know, they've still got some. They might have 8% left. But mostly they've been eliminated. They've been terminated by what we did and what Israel did, too. Yeah, please.
Israel is expected to expand its ground offensive in southern Lebanon to go after Hezbollah. Have you discussed that with Israeli leaders?
Yeah.
And does the United States support a potential Israeli invasion of Lebanon?
Yeah, no, I did. And I know look, Hezbollah is a problem. It's been a problem for a long time, not just now. And it's a certain area, because I was with the other night a person whose parents live in Lebanon. This is a very substantial person, wealthy person, whose parents live in Lebanon. I said, really? How do you live in Lebanon? Your parents are living? Oh, yeah, they live there. And over the years, they've gotten used to the fact that it's being bombed. But they explained to me that it's really a different section of Lebanon. It's the section where Hezbollah is. And they get used to it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, people live in Ukraine. You would think they wouldn't live in Ukraine, but they live in Ukraine. I don't know that I'd do that. But they live in Ukraine, they live in Lebanon. Hezbollah is a big problem, and they're rapidly being eliminated. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate it.
This is also part of the reason why I say, like, it's okay if we take it on the chin a little bit with our endless military incursions, right? It's not great, but military deterrence of any sort that actually deters the beast that is American empire is objectively for the greater good. Objectively. It's for the greater good for Americans, because hopefully we can chart a new trajectory, one that is more beneficial for the American working class, for ordinary Americans. Because any kind of restraint, whether by force or by democratic mandate, would give other countries in the periphery room to breathe, room to develop. But it would certainly be good for the American population as well. So we could focus on ourselves, focus on developing this country, okay? Building our roads, building our hospitals, building our educational system back up, building robust public infrastructure projects, public transit. It's unbearable the way we operate. American politicians' hatred for Iran is uniquely infuriating. We gave Iraq weapons, including chemical weapons that they used to commit war crimes against Iran in the Iran-Iraq War. Hundreds of thousands have died due to our weaponry. Then we invaded Iraq years later in 1991 and again in 2003, leaving a power vacuum for ISIS to form. The entire thing is so Machiavellian and just evil. Yeah. And there was one party that benefited tremendously from it. That party, of course, was Israel. Israel benefited tremendously from this as well. Our defense contractors benefited from this. Our petro-capitalists benefited tremendously from this. Our developers went over there and did developmentary projects, so they benefited tremendously from this. None of you benefited from it, though. You got nothing in return for this. It's unfucking believable. We just kill. We rape the land. We rape the population. We pillage. We steal. And you don't even see any of that imperial bounty. And you think in your mind that this is good. Why is it good? Maybe because those guys hate us, right? Maybe they're scary. You're told that your enemy is someone to fear, that you are told that these people are your enemies. Americans are some of the most propagandized people on this fucking planet, dude. The idea that we are the world police, the idea that this is for a greater good, the idea that there's a necessary amount of violence that we have to dish out in order to keep things fucking stable. as though some random goat herder in the mountains of Afghanistan was going to be a ever-present danger to your First Amendment rights. We know who the real threat to our First Amendment rights is this fucking baboon right here.
A lot of things to talk about, but there's not much I can say to you about them. So one of those little problems in life. And we had some very good results today, as you probably heard, in Iran. Very strong results militarily, we're talking to countries about policing the straits because they are the ones, we don't get oil, very little, 1%, 2%. China, as an example, gets about 90% of its oil from the Hormuz Strait. And nice to have other countries police that with us. And we'll help, we'll work with them. Militarily, as far as I'm concerned, we've essentially defeated Iran. I guess they can have a little bit of fight back, but not much. Not much. We've taken out their air forces, we've taken out their navy. We've taken out their air defense. There's no air defense whatsoever. We've taken out their leadership times 2 or 3. Might be 3. We'll find out soon. But militarily, it's been amazing. We attacked Karg Island, and we left just the one little area standing, and the standing part is where they have the pipes, all the oil pipes come in. And we can do that on 5 minutes notice. We have it all locked and loaded and ready to go if we want to do it. But we chose not to do it. I chose not to do it yet. We'll see what happens. They want to negotiate. They want to negotiate badly. I don't think they're ready. Just on what I'm hearing, they want to negotiate badly, as they should. But I don't think they're ready to do what they have to do. But I think they will be ready at some point. But we're doing very well with respect to that whole situation in Iran. We are talking to other countries about working with us on the policing of the strait. And I think we're getting good response. If we do, that's great. And if we don't, that's great too. But remember,
I'm skipping this.
We are ready to ensure safe passage.
Yeah, all of America's allies are once again unreliable. Unreliable once again. None of them want to wage war on our behalf or on Israel's behalf. It's unbearable, unbelievable.
Through the Straits of Hormuz diplomatically. However, there will be no military participation. We stand by our commitments and we are fulfilling our alliance tasks, particularly on NATO's eastern flank and in the high north.
What does the world expect? What does Donald Trump expect from, let's say, a handful or 2 handfuls of European frigates in the Strait of Hormuz that the powerful American Navy cannot accomplish there alone? That's the question I ask myself. And before we make a decision outside of NATO territory...
Yo, why doesn't the Israeli Navy go do that? Now that you think about it, why is it the German Navy's doing it? Yeah, get the Israeli Navy on board. Do they even have an Israeli Navy that's capable of, doing an operation like that? Put the Israeli boots on the ground. Put the Israeli boots on the ground. Get the Israeli Navy out there pronto. How come nobody is ever demanding Israel put their fucking lives on the line for this shit, Yeah, they're so good when it comes to intercepting humanitarian aid flotillas off the coastline of Gaza. Let them go toe-to-toe with the Iranians, man. Yeah, get those motherfuckers out there right now. I've decided Karg Island is right there, ready to seize. Bring those boys over there. Drop ship their asses into Karg Island, dude. It's their war. Why you got fucking Germany sweating out here? You're being extremely anti-Semitic with this suggestion. I know. It's how dare I say, hey, it's Israel's war. Why don't they wage it with their own fucking troops? Yeah. Oh, Moen Rabbani says they had the same idea. Yeah. Why won't Trump call upon the Israeli Navy to open the Strait of Hormuz? I agree.
By the way, we would need both an international framework and a mandate from the German Bundestag. I would think about that very carefully before we take that step. And I see absolutely no reason to do so. It's not our war. We didn't start it. We want diplomatic solutions and a swift end.
And so we have been clear and consistent in our objectives throughout this conflict. First, we will protect our people in the region. Second, while taking the necessary action to defend ourselves and our allies, we will not be drawn into the wider war. And third, we will keep working towards a swift resolution that brings security and stability back to the region. Firstly, we are working with others to come up with a credible plan for the Straits of Hormuz to ensure that we can reopen shipping and passage through the strait. Let me be clear, that won't be, and it's never been envisaged to be, a NATO mission. That'll have to be an alliance of partners, which is why we're working with partners both in Europe, in the Gulf, and with the US. It's important that we continue that. It is not straightforward, and you can see that historically when there have been other conflicts that have affected the straits. But I do think that working with others, including the US, is the way to go forward. And I had a perfectly good discussion with President Trump about that yesterday. And of course, as you'd expect, I mean, we are talking to the US at all levels all of the time. The Strait of Hormuz is then a separate discussion, and it is a discussion. We're not at a point of decisions yet, and I want to really stress that.
Now let's cross to Katrina Yu, who's joining us live from Beijing. Katrina, Trump is expected to be in China at the end of the month, but in that article, he's making possibly a veiled threat, at least pressure on Beijing to try and help him. I mean, how's that going to go down?
I don't think it's going to go down well. In the article, Trump mentioned China as one of the beneficiaries of oil being shipped through the Strait of Hormuz. That is correct. He also said that China gets about 90% of its oil through the strait. That's not correct. It gets more like 40%, but it is still a substantial amount. Now, as far as we know, that visit by Trump to China is still going ahead. In fact, over the last 2 days, today and yesterday, Chinese and U.S. officials have been meeting in Paris to discuss potential outcomes for that visit that Trump is expected to make. And the Chinese side and the U.S. side said that was constructive and positive. So we're yet to hear any official response to this Financial Times interview. But if that meeting or that summit were to be cancelled, it would indeed be a blow. This has been months in the making. And the whole point of this visit is to stabilize the relationship between the two biggest superpowers, to prevent a long list of disagreements from spiraling out of control into a wider conflict. And there's a lot at stake for both the US and Chinese economies. On the agenda were a few...
Reuters says the U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said he's seeking to delay a highly anticipated trip to China in early April by a month because of the Iran war. We've requested that we delay it a month or so, Trump told the reporters of the White House. China's embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Why won't they? Why won't they open the Strait of Hormuz?
Trade agreements, the discussion about the export of rare earths from China to the U.S. and technology exports from the U.S. to China. So if this were to be delayed or postponed indefinitely, that would be bad news for the companies operating in both countries. And it does show how volatile this relationship between Washington and Beijing is. China has made no promises that this meeting is going ahead, and actually there have been reports that China has been a bit frustrated about the lack of forward planning from Washington. But so far as we know, officials here on both sides are planning for that trip to happen.
Now, Katrina, one thing we do know about Donald Trump is he's very, very good at threatening nations. Now, if he does threaten to delay or cancel even the summit, what does China do then?
Well, I think it's very unlikely that China is going to do what Trump asked, that is to send some material help to help keep the Strait of Hormuz unblocked. I think there are three main reasons for that. First, Chinese President Xi Jinping does not have a history of capitulating or following any of Trump's orders or coercion or threats.
Don't do it,
and
my
we saw
goat.
this last year with the long-running trade dispute when Trump hiked those tariffs up to over 100%. China just said fine, and it hiked.
Get those export controls going. My goat, do it. Starve out the American beast of empire.
Tariffs up in kind. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that we know that China has been one of the biggest critics of the US and Israel's war on Iran. It condemned those attacks that happened when negotiations were still underway. China's foreign minister has said time and time again that force is not the answer. It's urging for de-escalation and return to the negotiating table. So it's quite difficult to imagine that Beijing would send firepower to that region. And third, I think the last reason is that when you look at the Chinese oil that is transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, there are some reports that Chinese ships are still being allowed to pass. And that is because China is a very friendly and positive partner for Iran. It's the biggest trading partner, the biggest buyer of Iranian oil. So there are reports, albeit unconfirmed, that Iran is still allowing Chinese shipments to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So that would reduce even further Beijing's motivation to send some warships or do whatever Trump said to keep the Strait of Hormuz unblocked.
That's Katrina Yu live for us there from Beijing. Now, Andy Mock is a senior research fellow with the Center for China and Globalization, a think tank that's based in Beijing. He's also a professor at the Beijing Foreign Studies University, and he joins us from Beijing. Andy, this was completely predictable and totally avoidable. The shutting of the Strait of Hormuz was going to happen if this escalated. But does this give China an opportunity to assert itself as an alternative to the US when it comes to a power broker?
Well, Imran, I think you're certainly right that the U.S. walked into, a morass or a quagmire. And there's an American phrase, FOFO, right? Mess around and find out. And I think it really, again,
that's crazy.
For whatever reasons,
he went mess around.
Finding itself entangled in a situation that's very, very difficult to extract itself from. And I think the best way to understand maybe how China is viewing this is there's a very famous saying, I believe, attributed to Napoleon, never interrupt your opponent when he is making a mistake. So I think that from that perspective, certainly while the U.S. is tied down, I think while it's a Navy, which was originally under tremendous stress. And, one way I've heard it put is while the U.S. military, the tip of the U.S. military spear is sharp, the shaft is brittle. And I think we are seeing that play out as well. So that certainly distraction, certainly I think, is in China's interest. And then I think finally, China's approach to this really has been, to any kind of conflict, is to resolve it through mutual discussion, respect for sovereignty versus any sort of direct military intervention. So I think it does seem, as we heard Katrina just say too, that it seems unlikely that China would intervene in the way that President Trump is hoping for.
Paper tiger, baby.
But President Donald Trump puts a lot of stock in personal relationships. And he does have a relationship, we don't know if it's good or bad, but he certainly has one with Xi Jinping. And he's going to use that publicly to put pressure on China to try and help out. His biggest card he's got at the moment is cancelling the summit. What does that mean?
Well, I think that's an interesting approach because certainly I think from the Chinese perspective, again, it recognizes and respects the bilateral relationship between China and the United States. But I think also, as we've seen over the last year or so, China also exerts tremendous leverage over the United States. It's not just the rare earth metals, it's the Boeing aircraft, it's the soybeans sold by American farmers. So I think while certainly personal relationships matter in diplomacy, just as they say in Hollywood, it's not show friends, it's show business. And I think that's even more true of diplomacy.
Well, talking of diplomacy then, China has a very, very good relationship, a good working relationship with Iran. It supplied technology to Iran just before the war happened. What's the state of relations now between Iran and China? Because China hasn't stepped up in perhaps the way a lot of military analysts thought they might. But again, if you look at what China has done in previous conflicts, you mentioned that earlier, China doesn't really get involved militarily.
Yes, I think that's absolutely right, Mon. And I think, again, this is a very profound difference, I think, in approach to diplomacy that is more than just tactical. But again, I would say it's philosophical as well. I also want to mention, I think, a very, very important point here that's not perhaps well appreciated. So China, of course, through rare earth metals, actually provides critical inputs into Patriot missiles, et cetera. So this is one area that I think the U.S. is acutely aware of. But at the same time, because of its manufacturing supply chain for drones, its components, it is also, even though perhaps not at the state level, actively supporting Iran in this way. But certainly, I think, again, providing critical inputs through market mechanisms to Iran to continue this conflict, to defend itself from this aggression from the United States and Israel. So I think this dynamic, I think, is also very, very important to appreciate.
But Andy, what is the relationship? You just mentioned Israel there, and that was going to be my next question. Is there a relationship between China and Israel that China can leverage here?
Right. Well, again, I think China's approach is, first of all, not to take one side over the other. And I think we see this very clearly in West Asia or the Middle East, in that it believes in the importance of relationships with all countries in the region. So it's not just the GCC countries. It's also, as we're talking about today, it's Iran, it's Israel. So and I think this is a very different approach to how the U.S. Approaches diplomacy in this region. And I think, again, we're seeing the negative impact on this. So it's not only the short-term oil disruption, the impact it might have on global economies, including the United States, but this may actually irrevocably damage the trust that, in particular, the GCC countries have in the United States. So I think, again, there are, I think, very high costs to the U.S. approach of taking one side, and I think these are becoming more visible with this recent action by the Trump administration.
Andy, thank you so much for your thoughts. Fascinating.
The president is very dismayed with American allies. He's putting a lot of pressure on them. He wants help from them when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran essentially has at a standstill to oil traffic going through there, oil traffic that doesn't really pertain to the U.S., but it does because that's how oil is priced. It's a global pricing system, obviously, and it's affecting the U.S. But he's frustrated with American allies.
It doesn't have to be. But even then, you would be destroying the rest of the planet. Like, you would be destroying so many countries that rely on the imports. Like, American oil export controls, especially at a time like this, would destroy the energy grids of so many other countries as well. So there's also that problem as well.
Numerous countries have told me they're on the way. Some are very enthusiastic about it, and some aren't. Some are countries that we've helped for many, many years. We've protected them from horrible outside sources, and they weren't that enthusiastic. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that that was said, because when I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them. And if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us.
All right. Our reporters are at the White House, Tel Aviv, and New York. They've been listening to the president's remarks. They're covering all different angles of this. I want to bring in CNN's Elena Treen first at the White House. Elena.
He truly is a baby. Like, he truly is. He operates like a baby. Like, he's like, I broke it. Why won't you help me fix it by making it worse, actually? Put your bodies on the line for me. I could totally de-escalate. And for the record, a lot of these other countries, these vassal states, are disgusting. Like, they could turn around and say, hey, this can be fixed if you just de-escalate, you know? If you left Iran alone, this will be fine. Why won't you do that? That would be the honest take here. That would be the honest approach. But of course, we will never have the honest approach when it comes to international politics, international relations, because these guys are vassals. So at most they'll say, oh, well, we don't want to intervene. We don't want to risk the lives of our soldiers, stuff like that. We don't want to risk our assets. What can our assets do that the American government can't? Right? Like, what could our assets accomplish that you literally cannot do? Which is true. That's the argument here. But the real argument should be to say, hey, we all want this instability to end. You are the reason for why this instability exists.
What stood out to you based on what we heard there?
Yeah, I think really touching on exactly what you just played from the president was.
I may have asked this before, but you said yes when I asked the U.S. deserves another Cuban Missile Crisis. What would your reaction be if right now nukes are aimed at the U.S. and you're within impact radius? I mean, that is what it would be. If we're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis, like that's literally what it is. Nuclear arms are not meant to be used. As a matter of fact, nuclear arms are just a deterrent. It's the maximum deterrent. Also, there are nuclear arms that are aimed in the United States of America right now, at the United States of America right now. It's just, some of them are from our foreign adversaries, and clearly no one is using them, which is great. And then there's also one that is a foreign ally. Israel has nukes. They're aimed at the United States of America. I'd be more worried about that shit than Russia, honestly. Yeah, I don't know if the chatter knows this, but we have ICBMs now. You are accessible by nuke on all corners of the earth. Those didn't exist during the Cuban Missile Crisis. They also, not only did they not exist during the Cuban Missile Crisis, they exist now. And you know who else has ICBMs? Fucking North Korea. Everybody always talks about how North Korea, oh my God, if they get nukes, if they produce nukes, it's over, right? They have nukes. Then they were like, oh, well, if they get nukes, but then they also developed a delivery mechanism, an ICBM, then it's over. Because they're unstable, they're dangerous, they're crazy. Well, they have them too. They have ICBMs and they have nukes. The only thing that is created for North Korea is that we don't fuck with them. We don't fuck with them. Do you understand? Perhaps that's the real reason why. And I was a fan, and I still am, in theory, a fan of denuclearization across the board, right? Universally destroying all nuclear arms. That should be the goal. Having said that, however, it's not going to happen until everybody has nukes, in my opinion.
Really the most notable to me, this idea of his disappointment, and he used that word specifically, Omar and Brianna, to describe.
The infantility of the German government appears to have no limits. The German foreign minister now says regimes like Iran cannot invoke international law. The most fundamental principle of international law is that it applies equally to all states. To challenge that is to declare yourself a rogue state. Yeah. IRGC threatens to target American firms across the Gulf, including Halliburton, Honeywell, Oracle, and Lockheed. Bloomberg, the massive Shah natural gas field in the United Arab Emirates, caught fire after a drone strike has shut it down. Attacks in Erbil, Kuwait, and Saudi continue, by the way. Yeah, footage of the embassy CRAM shooting drones over residential areas in Baghdad. Iran fired missiles towards Tel Aviv. One was intercepted near Ben Gurion. Hezbollah announced a third direct ATGM hit on a Merkava near Tibet within the span of 90 minutes.
The countries, and particularly the NATO allies, that he says are not coming to the United States aid here and trying to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. I thought, what we heard of him actually yesterday is very much the same kind of threat we're hearing today. It's almost this ominous warning to countries who do not get involved here to send warships to escort these tankers, which is very dangerous, I should point out. We've heard that now from many top military, commanders and whatnot. But this dangerous, helping in this dangerous mission of trying to send these warships to escort these tankers through that very critical Strait of Hormuz. At one point, he said, I think we're going to have some very good help, and I think we're going to be disappointed with some countries, again, getting back to that point. But one thing that very much was clear, and it was a bit clear from that clip you played, is that he continued to talk about this idea of how he's always thought of the NATO alliance almost as being more beneficial for other members than it is for the United States. At one point, he said, I've said for years that why aren't we being reimbursed for what the United States is doing in the Strait of Hormuz? He kept saying, I've been saying that for years. He brought up this point that he believes that when these countries need help from the U.S. is willing to help them, not necessarily the other way around. One thing I do want to be clear on, though, and just some context to all of this, is what has been so interesting about the president calling on these countries to send these warships to help reopen the strait is that this is the first time, really, that we've heard the president be so eager to involve other countries in this war. I'd remind you that when the U.S. first struck Iran, of course, with Israel as well, a lot of these countries said that they were surprised and that they, were kind of caught off guard when that first happened. So I'd keep that in mind here as well. But really, I think this enormous pressure we have seen from President Trump, and I should note as well, someone who has repeatedly mused openly about this idea of withdrawing support from the NATO alliance, this pressure that continues to build. Even so, we still haven't seen a lot of these allies who the president said he wouldn't name, but a lot of these allies come out and say that they would actually send warships. You look at Germany, the UK, Japan, who I should note whose prime minister will be here later at the White House later this week. All of them so far being very cautious about heeding the president's urges here right now.
Members of NATO are responding after President Trump warned that the alliance would face a, quote, very bad future if it doesn't help secure the Strait of Hormuz.
This is, what's funny about this? I've been thinking about this a little bit. You know how we created a secondary market because we had applied such rigorous sanctions, such strict sanctions on so many countries that they basically created their own independent marketplace? What are we going to do? Add Europe to said secondary market? Like, if everyone else is isolated, then you're the one who's actually isolated, We are by force building brick by brick the BRICS allegiance. And then now we're adding what? The European Union? Obviously, they are servile dogs that will never decouple from America and American empire. But goddamn, if we just keep pressuring, if we just keep up the stress, eventually people are just going to be like, all right, well, how about we all just isolate America and this will actually cut off the head of the snake, really.
Now, the EU's foreign policy chief appeared to agree with President Trump that it is in Europe's interest to keep the strait open, but also added it's, quote, out of NATO's area of action. And a spokesperson for German Chancellor Friedrich Merz struck a more defiant tone, saying it is not NATO's war. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer spoke about the situation earlier.
We have to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to ensure stability in the market. That is not a simple task. So we're working with all of our allies, including our European partners, to bring together a viable collective plan that can restore freedom of navigation in the region as quickly as possible and ease the economic impacts.
Let's talk about the dynamics here. I want to bring in Jim Townsend. He served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for European and NATO policy. Good to see you. I just want to start on, I want to pick up with a little bit of what we heard from the president here in terms of the United States' relationship with NATO. On one hand, asking for help, not just from NATO countries, but from those from the likes of China and Japan as well, but also in the same breath saying the United States doesn't need NATO. And I just wonder, from the European perspective, where is the threshold for actual assistance here, and what do you think it would take to actually get to that point?
Well, it's a great question, and I think there's a lot of confusion about NATO versus NATO allies. But NATO as an institution, if it wanted to go to the Straits, if this was something that NATO agreed, like going to Afghanistan was, NATO could do that. But NATO right now would not have it would never get the votes within the alliance to make this an alliance operation. However, NATO nations can certainly come together in a coalition of the willing and go in there and do what the Prime Minister Starmer was talking about.
What is this? Breaking. Securities and Exchange Commission is preparing a proposal to eliminate the quarterly earnings report requirement and give instead companies the option to share results twice per year. What? Every single security should be like one of those weird Shamat SPACs that he blocks you for bringing up. All investing should feel the same as trying to hit a parlay on an influencer boxing card. Oh my God. SEC no longer will be doing quarterly earnings reports. Oh my God. I mean, fuck it. We ball, right? It's all fake anyway. Holy shit. The market is so fake. And this is making it even more fake.
About to go in there and to work with the U.S. Navy and get the straits open. So as far as Europeans are concerned, they realize that this is going to be in their interest because of the price of energy and other economic ramifications. But they're still stung by how they have been addressed by Trump and how the alliance has been addressed in terms of NATO. So there's not a lot of good feelings towards the United States right now, particularly because they were not part of the process in the run-up to this war.
And that's one of the major contrasts here, that in the past we may have seen the United States sort of feel out that support that may be there from allies before taking action as significant as we've seen here. Obviously, that didn't happen here. But in terms of assistance, the president is asking for whatever it takes, to quote him, including minesweepers, for example. What help could NATO countries actually offer here that would help in the United States efforts?
Well, one thing that a lot of the NATO nations who are seafaring nations, like Denmark, UK, and others, they do minesweeping. NATO has a very capable minesweeping capability among the nations. So it doesn't have to be a NATO maritime operation.
How are you going to fucking sweep the mines if there are drones flying overhead under a missile barrage? It's not happening. NATO is not doing shit. America is not doing shit. First of all, if America can't send their goddamn ships over the strait, why would the UK be any different? Which is pretty much what the European leaders have said, as you guys heard, right? They were like, well, if you can't send your ships, why the fuck would we do that? You're America. NATO is also America. And if Iran is urging America to send their ships and they're wild enough to fucking blow up America's ships, why wouldn't they blow up a French ship or any European ship for that matter, if they were to try to illegally cross the strait and violate the blockade that they're implementing? It's over. There's one way to open it up. Either we just keep bombing Iran and hope that eventually they run out of bullets, and that would take probably months at this point, if not a year, maybe more than a year. Or we de-escalate.
There, it can be the nations themselves who can bring their minesweeping capability to the Gulf. The UK used to have minesweepers there. They're not there anymore. The US did too, and they're not there. So I think what's important here is that that the allies, the NATO nations themselves, that this might not be a NATO operation, but the European nations know that this has got to be done. And I think they need to hold their nose and get this done. Trump or not Trump, a German war or not a German war, a NATO war or not a NATO war, we got to put that aside. And these nations can bring not just their minesweeping, but they've got frigates, they can do escorting, they can do a lot of things, leaving the combat activities to the U.S. if that's the way they want to do it.
We're joined now by CNN military analyst, retired Army Lieutenant General Mark Schwartz. General, thank you so much for being with us here. And in response to Trump's calls to assist with keeping shipping lanes open, there was a spokesperson for the German chancellor who said, this war has nothing to do with NATO. It is not NATO's war. So, you know, maybe you can sort of dissect the president's request here. I think there's a lot of folks who look at it and think there are flaws, but also, can NATO really wash their hands of this?
I don't think they can. I think NATO collectively as an alliance, maybe it's not a NATO alliance Article 5 scenario, but certainly there's many European countries that have provided littoral combat ship-like vessels, frigates, other mine, countermine capabilities to many of U.S.-led coalition maritime efforts. So I suspect we'll see.
They keep saying no. It's so funny. Germany's government rejected. This is literally 5 minutes ago. Germany's government rejected Trump's demands that NATO allies help secure the Strait of Hormuz, declaring that the alliance had no place in the war. It's so funny. Oh, it's so awesome. They just keep saying, no, dude, no. Why would we do that? And it makes sense because Trump is not doing it, right? Like, what difference fundamentally would it make if it wasn't just American ships that are trying to cross the Strait of Hormuz, but like also different naval assets of European countries like NATO nations? Like, what is the goal to just like overwhelm their munitions as like a missile sponge? Yeah, we just send the fucking European ships ahead and they just get pummeled, and then hopefully they'll run out of bullets.
Several countries eventually agree to come in. The United Kingdom is.
Like, I don't think people understand something. If Iran is crazy enough to attack America, then smaller countries getting involved is not going to change the equation. Like, is Donald Trump trying to create the conditions of like a world war against Iran? Like, is Donald Trump trying to get every country to create a coalition of the willing to send like thousands of soldiers and naval assets to try and like go and invade militarily the nation state of Iran? Because anything short of that is not going to fucking work. Because again, all they need to do is bunker up and just keep lobbing fucking drones. It is an incredibly cheap way of destabilizing the global energy markets. Okay, the more I talk about this, the more I'm realizing maybe that is the fucking point. I guess like is he going to try to do like a world war or something? Like what? Pelosi mobilized? Nancy Pelosi was spotted at a hidden bunker in Tel Aviv, kneeling in Netanyahu's casket in a pleather bustier and a visible whale tail from her micro skirt looking thick as hell. No, she was wearing that outfit last night at the Vanity Fair Oscar party, though. Yowza, what a woman.
So, you know, you heard the prime minister speak earlier about, hey, let's come together and put together a task force, a coalition to support freedom of navigation. So, you know, it's just, I wish this wasn't playing out in public. It's not healthy, I don't think, with long-standing alliances, the kind of, you know, tit for tat that's going on. But I do think inevitably we'll see many European countries come to support this effort.
The problem is clear. The solution, not so much. Having gone to war with Iran, Donald Trump now wants the UK and other NATO allies to help combat the repercussions, namely unblocking the Strait of Hormuz, after Tehran made this vital waterway part of the war zone by targeting tankers with missiles and drones. The US president has so far received a lukewarm response from his friends, despite warning that his support for NATO may hinge on what they offer.
I was very surprised with the United Kingdom, because the United Kingdom, 2 weeks ago, I said, why don't you send some ships over? And he really didn't want to do it. I said, you don't want to do it. We've been with you. You're our oldest ally. And we spend a lot of money on, you know, NATO and all of these things to protect you. And then they tell us that we have a mine ship around and they don't want to do it. I think it's terrible.
Sir Keir Starmer portrayed the phone call on Sunday in a more positive light.
We are working with others to come up with a credible plan for the Straits of Hormuz.
I don't get it, guys. I fell asleep day 3. And the last thing I remember was Trump saying, we don't need British ships. They're gay. And it's a W. It's over. We killed the Ayatollah. I'm waking up now, 13 days later, and we're looking for alternatives. We're trying to bring in, you know, British troops, trying to get them involved in this shit. What's going on? What is this? Semaphore, it takes less than 5 minutes to get Trump's number. Yeah. It's kind of crazy that this is a Semaphore article, but yes, I know this from Brace. I could get Trump's number right now if I wanted to
ensure that we can reopen shipping and passage through the strait. And I had a perfectly good discussion with President Trump about that yesterday.
Iran made clear any move to escort tankers and other commercial shipping through the strait would be high risk.
They are asking other countries to come and assist them so that the Strait of Hormuz remains open. Of course, from our perspective, it is open. It's only closed to our enemies, to those who carried out unjust aggression against our country and to their allies.
Of course, the best way to restore tanker traffic would be a ceasefire between the US, Israel and Iran. Otherwise, the US military would have to take the lead in coordinating any international mission to protect shipping lanes with its warships and surveillance aircraft.
The biggest coward man in the world, Starmer, standing his ground, incredible. Honestly, it's because he's just like afraid of everything. He's afraid of Trump, sure, but he's also afraid of like sending troops. That's the reason why he's like, he clearly wasn't afraid when it came to like, you know, sending the Royal Air Force to go do genocide alongside Israel, right? But this time, like, it's not, his enemies are not children inside of schools. His enemy is the nation of Iran, and they got, you know, clearly they got smoke. So that's the reason why he's like, maybe this time we stay out of it, you know? I'm too scared.
As for what the UK could offer, it's a lot less than in the past. Right now, the Royal Navy has no warship to hunt and destroy mines in the region, whereas it used to have 4. Also, the single major warship that has been dispatched to help bolster Britain's defences is still en route. The UK has talked about sea drones as a possible option, but they fall far short of the sort of protection provided by a destroyer or a frigate. It's the reality of defence cuts over time that's left Britain so reliant on the US for its own protection, and so exposed if Trump really does decide to go cool on defending Europe. Deborah Haynes, Sky News.
Day 17 of the war, and of course we see the things we would expect to see at this stage, which is more attacks on both sides. The map changes every day, but it's a map that we can expect to continue in that vein for a while. More interesting at the moment is what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz, because this has now become a very hot issue and the politics of it are extremely delicate. Let's take the politics out of it for a moment and just think about the technical side. If any military was going to try to open the Strait of Hormuz, what would it need? Well, it would need 3 things. The first thing it would need is a series of air defense destroyers which could actually operate along the coastline, providing air defense against missiles or drones being...
This is so dumb. They would get fucking destroyed. I don't think that there is the necessary manpower. Guys, this area that you can navigate by sea is 2 miles. This area from land to land is 20 miles, and the only area that you can navigate through the sea is 2 miles wide. It is fucking dumb as hell, bro. There is no shot.
...fired from the Iranian side. The second thing it would need is a series of air attacks, probably, on targets inside Iran, any targets that could operate against something on the coast. So it would need a very active policy of hitting things every time they saw them appear near the coast. And then the third thing it would need, and this is the most difficult, of course, is a convoy system. So we've made some guesses here. Supposing a convoy of 6 ships was envisaged, and these would be tankers. These tankers are supposed to keep at least 8 to 12 ship lengths apart when they travel through this area. Supposing that was cut by 50%, supposing they said, okay, 4 lengths apart is good enough. Well, at 4 lengths apart...
Dude. Geography favors Iran in any war to open Hormuz. The shipping lanes are so narrow, tankers and naval escorts are sitting ducks, perfect for Iran's drones and mines. Trump is caught in the escalation trap. Okay, Robert Pape, we get it. Escalation trap, man. Jesus Christ. Yeah, look, see? This is what I was saying. The shipping lanes that you can navigate are only 2 nautical miles wide, bro. This entire, like, land-to-land distance is 20 miles, but the rest of it is too shallow. So the shipping lanes are only 2 nautical miles wide. Ain't no fucking way that's happening. A Hormuz tight? Yeah, bro. That shit is tight. It's tight as hell. Fuck. It's tight, baby. Yeah, escort missions would be carried out by destroyers or frigates with air cover, Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyers, USS Michael Murphy, USS Spruance, USS Frankie Peterson Jr. Multi-layer threats are drones and fast attack vessels, mini subs and sea mines, and also ballistic missiles as well. Like rocket fire. You could have, I mean, it's opportunities are endless. Yeah, Hormuz. So it's just not going to happen.
The size of these tankers, we're still talking about a convoy that would be about 12 kilometers long. It would still be a very large...
Why can't you put the oil on a much faster boat so the rockets and drones can't hit them? Are they fucking stupid? Yeah, why didn't they think of that, bro? Just tiny go-fast boats. How much oil could they... Yeah, just unleash a swarm of tiny boats.
Convoy, even with a warship at either end. So a warship at either end would need to be supplemented by sort of sheepdogs that are able to move in and out of the convoy to protect them against drones, against robot boats, against people with in rubber inflatables just trying their luck. This would be a very large area to try to preserve. Now, of course, this is...
Bro, that's like you put 6 destroyers in there, 2 of them are getting sunk. Easy. None of the oil ships are getting through. They're blowing them up instantly. And at least 2 of the destroyers are getting sunk. At least 2. And then the others have to do evasive maneuvering. They probably get damaged beyond repair as well. It's just not happening. It would be the greatest public relations victory for the Iranian state. I don't think any general would do that, but I don't know. We've been so unimaginably idiotic so far in the way that we have conducted this war. In the way that we prosecuted this war, it's just, who knows? Maybe they got some real dumbasses willing to do it.
Scale, but 12 kilometers of...
Admiral, sorry.
Target traveling 600 miles right up to the Shatt al Arab waterway at the head of the Gulf is quite a long gauntlet to have to run. Are there any alternatives? Well, there is one clear alternative, which the Saudis thought about years ago when they faced this during the Iraq-Iran war in the 1980s. They built themselves a pipeline that goes from Abqaiq to Yanbu. And that pipeline is very efficient, but it won't take the amount of oil.
No, it's not. Yeah, it's 15%. There's also issues with... it's not all the refineries. It can only take 15%. Oil pipelines can be destroyed in the same process with like drone strikes. And last but not least, even at Yanbu, that's still, the Houthis could still start nuking the ones that are not going up the Suez Canal because they still have to go through this choke point. Okay, they're in Yanbu. Great. What's that? Oh no. That's the Houthis sound. That's the sound of the fucking Ansar Allah movement. What are they going to do now?
That still needs to be got out through the Gulf. And here is the problem. If they put tankers into the Red Sea, which they could to load up at Yanbu, first of all, they've got to go out through this Bab el-Mandeb Strait at the foot of the Red Sea. And that area, of course, is threatened by the Houthis, who have said that we will attack shipping in that area.
Yeah, if you were wondering, like, Houthis love the smoke, right? They live for it. Why have they been so quiet as of late? This is why. They're just waiting for this moment. Okay? That's it.
Now, they haven't done that yet, and we don't really know why they haven't done it, but that threat is still there. The other alternative is, of course, to go out...
No, the Houthis are not particularly restrained people. I think, like, there's a tactical reason for why they're doing it. That's my assessment, at least. Because, like, they are letting ships pass through right now. But if they wanted to close that shit, they could also do that.
Through the Suez Canal. But the fact is, what is the depth permitted through the Suez Canal? In reality, it's 20 meters. And if you think about the big tankers that we're talking about, 20 meters is not enough. This is a very large crude carrier, a VLCC. And there are ultra-large crude carriers, even bigger than this. And a very large crude carrier requires a depth of about 21 or 22 meters. And the ULCCs, even more than that. So
why are the Houthis built different? I don't know, dude. There's some with the look. There's just some about the Yemeni people. I don't know what the fuck it is, but they are some of the most resilient. They're some of the craziest motherfuckers I've ever encountered in my life. Okay, I don't know what the hell it is. Hold on, I'm gonna give you some stuff back. They're crazy, bro.
Fact is that the big tankers
They are built
wouldn't be
different,
able to get out
actually,
through Suez,
unironically.
and it would be dangerous for them to try to get out through the bottom or the southern part of the Red Sea. So there we are. The fact is, an awful lot of oil is tied up in the Gulf at the moment. Getting it out through the Gulf itself, through the waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, is dangerous. Getting it out via the Red Sea, using the Saudi pipeline, is dangerous.
I got it right.
That's where the war is for now, and that probably is what is going to circle back and affect the politics of the war in the next week or two.
To the brave people of Iran, I wish you, as I do every year, a happy holiday season beginning with the Festival of Lights. It signifies the age-old belief of the Iranian people that light will triumph over darkness, that good will triumph over evil. This year, this holiday has special meaning. Celebrate it with your friends, your family, your loved ones. I take this opportunity to wish you...
It'll be the last time you see them, because I'm a murderer, and I'm coming to do murder.
A happy Nowruz, a year of freedom, a new beginning of hope to all of you, my dear friends. Nowruz Piruz, Payande Iran.
We turn now to the Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi.
He dead, bro.
Good evening to you, sir.
Well, good evening to you. Thank you for having me for the second time.
Yes, and they are extraordinary times. Minister, President Trump said this weekend he is not ready to make a deal with Iran because the terms aren't good enough yet. His administration is saying this war could last another 3.5 weeks or so. Has Iran asked for a ceasefire?
No, we never asked for a ceasefire, and we have never asked even for negotiation. We are ready to defend ourselves as long as it takes, and this is what we have done so far, and we continue to do that until President Trump comes to the point that this is an...
What? Bro's jerking it? What? Did it look like I was jerking off when I was tossing my salad? Yeah, in front of 45,000 people, I just decided to whip it out. Fucking idiots.
Illegal war with no victory, and there are people being killed only because President Trump wants to have fun. This is what he has said.
Have fun?
We are not. Yes, this is what he said, that they are sinking, ships and targeting different places because it is fun.
He did say that.
The
Oh
Secretary
my
of
God.
War,
When your president is so stupid, when your president is so unimaginably stupid that the foreign minister of an adversary just repeats what he has said and you don't believe it.
has said that there is no mercy. And this is actually a war crime. Even saying that is a war crime. So this is a war. This is a war of choice by President Trump and the United States, and we are going to continue our self-defense.
Well, that may be your position, but sir, this is a war of survival for your government. Minister, don't you have to negotiate and reach out either directly or through a third party?
No, it's not a war of survival. We are stable and strong enough. We are only defending our people from this act of aggression, and we don't see any reason why we should talk with Americans, because we were talking with them when they decided to attack us, and that was for the second time. There is no good experience talking with Americans. We were talking, so why they decided to attack us? So what is good if we go back to talk once again?
Well, I want to come back to that in just a moment. You're referring to the diplomacy with President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his envoy, Steve Witkoff. But just to continue on this, Iran is sending its drones and its missiles into your neighboring countries, American allies throughout the Gulf.
Okay. There has to be some journalistic value at a certain point with these conversations. Why do they always ask this question? I've heard Abbas Araghchi answer this fucking same dumbass question on this show before. He's been on Face the Nation twice. This is now the second time he has asked the same question. And every other question they keep asking the same. They're like, why are you retaliating against American bases in the fucking region that we're trying to launch attacks off of?
Before the war, your government traded with them, you had relations with them. If your government survives this conflict, how do you go back to doing business with countries you're sending drones into and hitting civilian targets?
Well, obviously, these are the countries who have given their soil to American forces to attack us. So what can we do? We just sit and watch that American forces are attacking us from their soil, and
but your drones are going into civilian areas and hitting plants and hotels and civilians.
No, this is not the fact. We are only targeting American assets, American installations, American military bases. Everything belongs to Americans, and this is a fact that they are using their soil. Just there are many examples. Just yesterday, they attacked our islands using HIMARS artillery rockets, which are low-range rockets, and they used the territory of UAE to attack us. A week ago, 3 F-15 jet fighters were shot down, apparently by a friendly fire in Kuwait. But nobody asked what they were doing in Kuwait. They were using Kuwait and airspace of a neighborly, a friendly country to attack us. So it is obvious we cannot just remain
right. Well, so many of these countries are part of CENTCOM, but this is the point, is that it's going to hurt your country in the long term. But when we talk about the Strait of Hormuz,
that's crazy. Yeah, don't you think it's already hurting the country in the short term? Don't you think it's already hurting the Iran in the short term right now? The very fact that all of its neighbors have American military bases that are being utilized, their soil is being utilized to attack Iran.
Which is such an important transit point for global trade. You have said it is closed to Israel and it's closed to the United States. The Financial Times is reporting that European diplomats from France and Italy are talking to your government about trying to get safe passage for their ships. Are you open to restarting oil and gas vessels going through there?
Well, we are open to countries who want to talk to us about the safe passage of their vessels.
You are negotiating with France and Italy?
Well, I cannot mention any country in particular, but we have been approached by a number of countries who wants to have a safe passage for their vessels, and this is up to our military to decide. And they have already decided to let a group of vessels belongs to different countries to pass in a safe and secure. So we provide them security to pass because we have not closed this strait. They are not coming themselves because of the insecurity which is there because of the aggression by the U.S.
I want to ask you again about the negotiations. Iran has declared it has 440 kilos or so.
We'll cover that in a little bit.
Of nuclear material. Where is that material now? Who has custody of it?
Well, we have not declared. This is verified and declared by the agency.
This
is not a secret. This is not a secret, The agency have said in his many reports the exact amount of our enriched, nuclear material.
Yes. So where is it now? Who has custody of it?
So they are under the rubbles. Our nuclear facilities were attacked, and everything is under the rubbles. Of course, there is the possibility to retreat them, but under the supervision of the agency. If one day we come to the conclusion To do that, it would be under the supervision of the agency. But for the time being, we have no program, we have no plan to recover them from under the rebels.
Am I understanding you here? Because I know that you said 48 hours before the U.S. strikes happened, you had personally offered to President Trump's negotiators to take that 440 kilo amount of 60% enriched material and to dilute it. You said Iran was ready to give that material away. This was in the deal that was also presented to Vice President Vance by Oman. Today, is Iran still willing to let go of that enriched uranium?
Well, that was one of the elements of a deal that we were negotiating with our, American interlocutors. That element dealt with the question of Iran's 60% enriched material. And I offered actually that we are ready to dilute those enriched material or downblend them, as they say, into lower percentage. So that was a big offer, a big concession, in order to prove that Iran has never wanted nuclear weapons and would never want them.
Are you willing to give that up now?
Well, there is nothing on the table right now. Everything depends.
Dude, the fucking Face the Nation anchor is not capable of conducting diplomacy with a sovereign foreign adversary that we're currently waging war with. Are you going to give it up? Tell me, are you going to give it up? He's going to say, we're not giving anything up right now because we're in war.
Depends on the future. If any time in the future we decide to enter into negotiation with the U.S. or other interlocutors, we may decide what to put on the table. For the time being, nothing is on the table.
There are at least 4 Americans being held at Evin prison that we know of, including a journalist, Reza Valizadeh, and Cameron Hekmati, a 61-year-old man. What is the status of those Americans? Are they safe?
This part is beast mode. Listen to this.
If the U.S. and Israel do not attack our prisons, I guess they are safe.
Foreign Minister, we are running out of time, and I can see the internet is going in and out here. I just do want to point out, you're speaking to us via Zoom.
Are you guys going to bomb them? No? Okay, then they're safe.
The Iranian people don't have open internet access, but you do. Why?
Well, because I'm the voice of Iranians, and I have to defend their right. So this is why I have access to internet to just have our voice being heard by the.
I'm sorry. Again, you want to know what the honest answer is? Because they're under fucking attack by Israel and America, and they do not want infiltration. They do not want additional worries of espionage. They don't want America to be able to fucking, turn on the propaganda faucet like they're known to do and cause complete fucking chaos. So you mute the people? Yes, yes, yes. Yes. What do you mean? Like, it's war, man. It's war. It's war. What the fuck are you talking about? It's war. Nah, mate. Like, I'm sorry. You can't fucking. There's a line. Yeah, this guy, Cheyenne John, he's got it. He's like, if I can't fucking jerk off on Pornhub for one day while there's bombs exploding over my fucking head, I'll kill myself. Nah, mate, there's a line. You have to let Israel infiltrate the country with their spies. Fuck you.
International community. But internet is closed because of the security reasons, because we are under attack, we are under aggression, and we have to do everything to protect our people. In any country, there are, urgent measures taken for the sake of war.
Minister, I'm glad the uplink worked to talk to you right now. We thank you for your time this morning. Face the Nation will be back in a minute. Stay with us.
In Tehran, a new era has begun, of sorts. Not the one America or Israel wanted. The Ayatollah is dead. Long live the Ayatollah, his son. Iran's airspace closed. We came overland, among the only international journalists currently allowed in, to witness the
It's also really funny because they're like, wow, I can't believe that there's like serious internet connectivity issues in Iran. How devastating. How fucked up. It's like, bro, our president currently wants to utilize the FCC to do a media blackout in the freest country on the fucking planet because he doesn't like the accurate coverage that the media accidentally does every now and then. Like, and we are not under imminent threat at all. We are the threat. We should still chat about how America will shut off mobile connectivity at protests at the time, all the time. How are people so stupid that they think that we're under same circumstances as Iran, that the U.S. shut off the internet as well? Yeah. Like, America literally got Larry Ellison, one of the IDF's biggest billionaire donors, to purchase TikTok because Americans were too aware of the war crimes that our tax dollars were contributing to. And you're over here being like, wow, how can Iran do such a cruel thing? Bitch, what the fuck are you talking about? They're under attack.
Of this war on the ground as it continues to escalate. In an exclusive interview with Iran's deputy foreign minister, an ominous warning as speculation grows that America may next send in troops.
Even suggesting that a foreign country can put boots on the ground of another country, invade another country, occupy the land of another country, is something very much rogue, very reckless, illegal, and against all international law.
There are thousands of US Marines on the way. What happens if they get used, do you think?
We defend.
What does that mean, though, for these Marines if they were to land in Kharg Island?
Just read what happened in Vietnam. I hope that wisdom prevailed and diplomacy prevails on the other side. They understand that those who drag them into this war can drag them into also a quagmire for them.
The government still seems in control here, but while the new supreme leader's face may be everywhere, he's not been seen yet. Have you seen him? Is he okay? Is he well? Any information about his welfare?
I'm not in the business of speculations. You know that. We are just working by facts. He's healthy, he's in charge, and he's doing whatever is supposed to be done by him.
Why haven't we seen him?
Because the war is happening, and because the moment that he or his office decides to do that, they will do that.
Across the capital, across the country, Israeli and American airstrikes are leaving deep scars. Whole buildings are razed from the map. This is what so-called...
Yeah, where's Bibi, bro? Also, I don't care. He might be dead. I don't give a shit. I'm not Shia. I'm not Iranian. I am, however, aware that whether he's dead or alive doesn't change the dynamic at all as far as, like, Iran's ability to continue waging this war. You know what I mean? That's why it's like kind of funny that these guys are like, well, is he dead? Is he gay? Is he alive but a homosexual? Like, who cares, man? Are you eating the fucking Shahed drones? Are your buildings and your military bases hungry for Shahed drones or not? That's what I care about. Who cares if he's fucking dead? If you're an American, this conversation is utterly irrelevant. Seriously. Like, America could just keep decapitating the leadership of Iran over and over again. The way that their defense system works is this mosaic structure where there's like very clearly horizontal, decentralized response measure that they've already implemented. The first Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, his father, Moshtaba Khamenei's father, was killed. And that's when they started pummeling all these countries in the region.
Smart bombs due to homes next door to their targets. An apartment left devastated, its residents did not escape unscathed. The man who lives here doesn't want to talk on camera, but he's told us that when the explosion happened, the blast waves filled his apartment with thick dust and smoke and put his wife and daughter both in hospital with broken bones and shrapnel wounds. It gives you a sense, really, that however precise the munitions that the Israelis and Americans say they're using, they generally always have some kind of impact for those living around wherever they're targeting. Many have fled the capital. Those who remain try to carry on as best they can. In the market, they're shopping for the Persian New Year at the end of the week. some prepared to share their fears and concerns.
It's very unsettling. Nobody can predict what's going to happen next. We want the war to be over soon. Nobody knows how the situation will develop.
It's extremely awful. Nobody is buying anything and I can't do anything about it. Business is not good at all. It's not normally like this before New Year.
What's striking is that things are carrying on as normal, as much as they can, even though the war's happening. But there is a tension, not just because of the war, but also because of the protests, the unrest that happened in the weeks before the war that was so brutally suppressed. A lot of people won't speak on camera, but off camera, they're saying things like the situation is terrible, business is awful. And one man said to us that whatever happens during the war, he hopes when it's over, things can change for the better. But with no sign of de-escalation from either side and no sign of diplomacy, the prospect of this being over soon seems dismal and distant. Dominic Waghorn, Sky News, Tehran.
What would it look like if Iran assassinated Netanyahu? I mean, it wouldn't change much from like the Israeli calculation because those guys are crazy. Like the country demands this death and destruction. So I don't think it would like cause Israelis to pull back or anything. It would martyr him because he's still like somewhat of a polarizing figure individually. His actions are very popular as far as like waging these wars. But Israeli foreign policy wouldn't necessarily change. But I think people would love Iran. Like I think people would open up banners to the IRGC, to the Ayatollah, to Mojtaba Khamenei. Like there would be, the third world would absolutely erupt in joyous celebration. 1000%. That's what I think. It wouldn't change much in Israel though. Some people are saying they'd use nukes. I don't know if they'd use nukes for that, but I think they're more likely to use nukes if like their defenses diminish so much that like Iran and Hezbollah were able to destroy many buildings.
This is all that's left of a medical center in Burj Kalawai in southeast Lebanon. A smoldering mass of rubble hit by an Israeli airstrike that killed 12 medical workers inside.
Oh, the air is still thick with smoke. The building has been completely destroyed. And look here, boxes of medicine and pills, medical files everywhere. You get a sense of how enormous the blast here must have been.
On Friday night, it was set ablaze, killing nearly the entire medical team. They were doctors, paramedics, and nurses. Their job, to respond to the injured in nearby villages. One of their colleagues was outside.
I heard the very loud whistle of a missile, and suddenly a very bright orange light in front of us. So we knew right away they'd hit the center. We rushed in and started searching for the martyrs.
The UN has confirmed all 12 people killed were health workers. They were having dinner when the missile came without warning. They had nowhere to hide.
We've just come round the back and look, 4 floors completely blown apart. This building is a shell, and a reminder there that this is still very much an active zone. We're hearing outgoing fire here from Lebanon. It feels a very dynamic, very dangerous part of the world right now.
The Lebanese Ministry of Health has accused the Israeli government of criminal conduct. They say 32 medical workers have been...
I mean, they're Nazis, man. They're Nazis. They're not held accountable. But, like, if you're confused... Well, a couple things. One, if you're wondering why, and I haven't even gotten to this part of the story yet, American attitudes towards Israel shifting so dramatically in an irreparable manner. Israel is totally lost. The messaging war, and as I always say, this is the most popular. You mean Hamas? You can't be serious. Dog, we're talking about Lebanon. We're talking about Lebanon, man. I'm joking. They'll say Hamas Ministry of Health. Oh, okay. Anyway, the point is, this is why Israel is like lost the messaging war. No one fucking believes them anymore whenever they come out with whatever bullshit statement. And also, this is part of the reason why Israel's unlimited cruelty of this sort has created a unique environment where like people find themselves unironically more sympathetic than they ever would be to American foreign adversaries. Like I never could have imagined covering a war against Iran for 40, which is, you know, been declared America's #1 enemy for 47 years for ridiculous reasons. And I would have 42,000 people in here listening to what I have to say. And with very few instances where people go, I don't know if I agree with that. Like things have changed. Things have changed quite dramatically. This is a real attitude shift. I know we occupy our little space on the corner of the internet, but it has been really interesting because like even in comparison to like how I spoke about Palestinian resistance right after October 7 and spoke about Israel right after October 7, like the overwhelming majority of this community was like, no, that's crazy. I'm not ready to hear this at all. They were not ready to hear any kind of humanizing perspective that talked about the actual victims of the 80 years of settler colonial occupation that Palestinians were subjected to. Whereas now, the plight of the Palestinians hasn't just made people aware of Israel's unlimited violence. It has unlocked their consciousness in a way that I think is quite significant, in a way that many of you now who might not have been receptive to my message, which is just an accurate reflection of events and an understanding of history from the perspective of victims. Many of you that would not have been open-minded to what I had to say on October 8 are now actually listening and have a very different attitude. You have a much more open mind to listening to the plight of those who are dispossessed, the plight of those who are oppressed by American empire. Lamau, tell us more, Mr. Israel Intelligence isn't great. Are you unironically trying to defend Israeli intelligence and the big 226? Is that what this is? Dog, this is Israeli intelligence. Like, this is what Mossad does nowadays, is like come in to my fucking chat and annoy me. And be like, oh, where is Kaya? You are dog abuser. Why do you not shock Kaya more? Shock Kaya. You are Hamas. On my life is the most fucking washed country on the planet, dude. Oh my God. There is literally not a more washed country. I mean, seriously. They're so fucking washed. They got like Asmongold doing propaganda. They're so cooked. And the best they can do is Asmongold being like, yeah, why do people care so much about Israel? I think like eventually people are going to get fatigued. I think people are inevitably going to get fatigued by Israel. Yeah, I mean, this is what I've been saying for years at this point. This is the most popular Israel will ever be in the United States. Tomorrow, Israel will be less popular than it is today. Something to remember for all the Jewish advocacy orgs that keep tying themselves to the genocidal entity.
Damn, this guy's good.